Guys, today we got Nathan Cicio, right? That's how you say that, Cicio.
Yep.
I always look at that and I'm like, I always feel like I'm not saying it right, but it kind of throws me
growing
off.
up, I got called all kinds of stuff. There was the Cicios, and then I think that the announcer in Little League Baseball just didn't like me because he called me sicko. But I really honestly think he just didn't like me because I don't know how you could derive that from. But anyway, yeah. So I've been called all kinds of stuff. But It's so easy, it's hard.
Exactly.
And when you spell it for people, you're like, oh, it's CICIO, and they go, okay, wait, what? And you're like, well, okay.
It's one of those things you try to overcomplicate. Like,
yes.
You see the word and you're like, oh, like, let me try to really pronounce this.
Yeah. And then if I'm on the phone with like Verizon or something, I'm like, it's like the farmer, like EIEIO, only put C's in it. And they're like, oh.
Cicio. So you just opened your second location from, your first is up in Atlanta, your second down here in Clearwater now. Right? Third. Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a location Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. That was our second location. And kind of the test run to whether two locations would actually work in the performance world, which was, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to happen.
It's not normal because normally the owner's sitting right there, like the guy is sitting right in the shop at all times almost.
Yeah.
It's definitely an odd thing.
It is, and I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit because it's fun. But yeah, so Virginia Beach has been 4 years, I guess, just outside of Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Virginia. Atlanta was the original, and then here Clearwater is the third.
90% of your market is probably Huracans and R8s at this point, or is it? I know you do 911s. Nobody really builds GTRs anymore.
Yeah, we do some GTR stuff still. Obviously, we have that was kind of the OG. We got a solid clientele. I don't want to say we pick and choose, but we have a really good clientele base of GTRs and. And then GTR or the R8 and Huracan obviously is just a big market,
that
growing.
Platform's crazy in the last 5 years.
It's nuts.
It doesn't even make sense how many twin turbo R8s there are in this world.
It's crazy.
Huracans.
Yeah, which again I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit.
Do you guys call that like a certain thing, like that platform? Is it like, because I hate saying like R8 and Huracan, is it just?
I just call it the V10 platform.
Okay, the V10 platform. Yeah, because it's so annoying to have to preface both of them because it's the same car.
It is, and then we call it the V10, and then the Viper guys are like, wait a minute, like that's what I call it.
Yeah. And nobody's talking about a Gallardo.
No, they're not. Although those cars were pretty cool. And then we do some C8 stuff. Twin turbo, the new C8s. That has been a labor of love. Like you said, 911s. The RS3 market and the TTRS market a little bit.
Oh yeah, they're like mini R8s.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
half
exactly.
an R8.
Yep, exactly.
But those are really impressive cars. It's
crazy impressive.
Yeah.
We're just getting into that. But Hank from iRoz is a really good friend of mine, and obviously he's in Vegas, so he wants to support us. So we're starting to do some of that stuff. But yeah, and then just your general maintenance. Like Florida, we do general maintenance on stuff like Aston Martins, Ferraris, stuff like that. But as far as builds, that's what it would be.
Yeah, this area has a lot of that kind of like.
It does.
Higher end stuff. I mean, I don't know about other locations you have, but I know Clearwater, Sarasota, Florida is huge on that like supercar. Just the guy that needs an oil change on his Ferrari type of market.
And to be honest with you, that was one of the reasons that we opened down here is to do, some build stuff and then some general maintenance stuff on the higher end cars. Just because the demographic down here, like you said, it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome, and in my mind, only growing and getting better.
Yeah. Well, the V10 market is so crazy. Like, I'm good friends with Chase Laubach, and you've probably seen he sold, I don't know how many twin turbo R8s and Huracans. It just doesn't even make sense. I'm like, how is there this many that are on the market at all times? That's the craziest thing in itself. People build them and they're like, 1,000 miles on it for sale.
Right. Well, I think that the reality is first of all, there's a lot of those cars. If you actually look up the numbers, they don't that I know of. They don't put out the Huracan numbers, but the R8 numbers, I believe that you can go research. And there's more R8s than there are GTRs, which is kind of crazy. No, wait, that's opposite. The Huracan numbers you can get, and the R8s you can't, and there's more Huracans than there are GTRs. You guys will correct me in the comments, I'm sure.
Someone knows.
Yes, absolutely. So there's actually a lot of those cars, a lot more than you would think, that are actually produced. And then the other thing is, it's just like anything in our world, right? Like, how does it respond to modification? And that is going to dictate the market, right? And these cars are like, you sneeze at them, and they make power, right? Which is why there's a lot of people that are doing them that maybe shouldn't be, and then there are a lot of people that should be doing them, and they're doing a great job with them.
Well, it's a weird market too, because level 1 is basically stock, and then level 2 is like 1,200 horsepower.
Yes.
Like, you know, you can like entry level on like a GM car, you do like heads cam, but like on those, it's just like
non-existent.
like doing like if somebody was like, oh, I just want to do like an exhaust and like tune and like all this, you're like, oh.
It's like 20 horsepower.
Yeah, like why even bother? You might as well just wait. And
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a better sound, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
but that market is very cool. It's a very neat market. You know, we kind of cut our teeth on the GTRs, and we went through a lot of hell on GTRs to try to learn and understand and figure out what it took to make power. A lot of engine program stuff, a lot of learning, a lot of blowing stuff up, a lot of breaking my own car. I mean, we went through a lot of stuff because that was, '09, right? We were right at the beginning.
That was kind of all there was for like that supercar kind of, all-wheel drive rich person car, I guess. In a way.
Sure.
More like more like higher level race car, it felt like.
Yes, and it was the car that people could get into, and it responded super, super well to modifications. You could make it very fast, decently reliable, but didn't have a price point of entry that was insane, right? Plus, it also obviously appealed to all of the, we'll call them the Fast and the Furious type of crowd, because it's a Skyline, right?
Yeah.
So it appealed to those people, which it still does, and it's still an awesome automobile.
But I mean, they are cool. You just don't see them like you did, TX2K, like 12 to 18. You saw GTRs were just everywhere, and now it's like they've trickled out, and I think it's the same people now are just in the driver's seat of an R8.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what happened is the GTR, a lot of interesting things happening in the car market in the last 15 years. I mean, as you know, like back in the day, it was, you had to work your tail off to make a DSM or a Supra or something actually fast, and now and as the GTRs come out and some of these newer cars, it's a lot different market. And so I think what happened to GTRs, you had a whole bunch of people with really big eyes that were just like, hey, this thing can be really fast. And then they started realizing, wow, this costs a lot of money. Like these things break, right? It's 4,000 pounds. I'm trying to kick the thing off the line to run a short 260 foot. And why is the transmission breaking? Well, you just answered your own question, right?
Well, it's trying to rip itself in four, it looks like. Like when it launches, it looks like all four wheels are trying to rip itself in a different direction.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that it's usually pogo sticking the first, whatever it is, 330. But here nor there, I think that's kind of what happened is people got like, this car can do this, but it shouldn't. But a lot of people just made it do that. And so, which is one of the things, honestly, I'm kind of trying to fight in the V10 world a little bit, because it's just like, hey guys, let's pump the brakes here and enjoy, because we don't want the industry to get tired of their V10 braking at the drag strip, or, we want these people to enjoy these cars. So that's a lot more what we're seeing now in the GTR world. It's 1,500 horsepower and down. Because those cars at 1,500 wheel are a blast. They're an amazing car. They'll last. They're driver friendly. You can jump in it. You can put your wife in it. They'll actually run. That's a nice car. The 2,000 horsepower, like soda canned, no dash, no rear bumper, deal is.
Every car has a sweet spot.
Sure.
Like every chassis kind of has like where, you shouldn't anymore. You should switch platforms at some point.
But yet we still do. Why?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that I see building cars and I'm like, why are you still building that car instead of like switching up? They're like, this is just what I had.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, at some point it doesn't have to be what you build.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You can cut your losses and
for sure. So yeah, the GTR market, we still build quite a few of them, but the R8 stuff and the Lambo stuff, the V10, if you will, market, it's definitely been the up and coming thing. But there is a large dividing line. I listened to another one of your podcasts. I believe it was with Aaron from Nth Moto. That's how you say that, right, Aaron? And talking about how a ton of readily available parts and just any shop can go buy this turbo kit, this, and this. And there's interesting stuff happening right now, because that's an intricate car. And there's details that go into those builds that, making 1,000 horsepower is one thing, but like actually starting to build those things, there's nuances that if you get a shop that just buys an AMS turbo kit or a Boost Logic turbo kit and, a fuel system from somebody and, a transmission from somebody, and then, remote has somebody come in and tune it, there is a very large possibility you're going to create a customer experience that's not going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
And that is starting to come to light, as the industry grows. But so it's a very interesting market. We've tried very hard to kind of be the one-stop shop. Now we outsource to some of the other major companies as far as manufacturing partners, but we've tried very hard to not make it so that the end user experience was a positive one.
Yeah, you can kill morale on a car very easily. A car sits at a shop with a half inch of dust on it for too long. I mean, that $200,000 car is suddenly going to look really alluring to sell.
Yeah, well,
and get out of the industry.
You know what I really don't like is I really don't like the possibility for the finger pointing game. It's right. Oh, this guy built the transmission. It's probably his problem. Oh, the transmission builder says this company tuned the TCU, so it's probably their problem. And this other person put it in, and it's this guy's turbo kit, and this guy built the engine, and this guy over here in some other country tuned it, and then it's just like everybody's going, I don't know, right? And that. To me, that's so dangerous. Like, because, listen, let's get real. Our industry is not something that is. There's a lot of stuff against us right now, right? There's a lot of things trying to make it so that our industry is not something that's thriving and growing, and to kind of be our own enemy is not something that we can afford right now, in my opinion, as far as an industry-wide situation.
Yeah.
So I cringe as seeing a customer possibly have an experience where they're like, where there's not a one-stop, the buck stops here, it's my fault, it's not my fault situation, to where you can create that a customer experience. Go, oh, I think it was the tuner. Oh, I think it was the engine builder. Oh, I think it was the guy that installed it, didn't tighten an oil line. Oh, I think the transmission builder. Oh, the transmission tuner. And there's a lot of shops. They're like 5 or 6 different major components by 5 or 6 different people. They're not even two people do 2 things. That's scary.
Yeah, it seems like the guys at the top share a lot of their stuff. Like, a lot of people buy parts from Hefner. A lot of people use tuning from a similar kind of like the guys at the top are all kind of using each other.
Right.
But then the guys that are trying to get in are trying to do shady stuff and using some tuner that nobody's ever heard of, or like that's where it gets scary. You send your car off to somebody that you don't know, you've never seen somebody with this turbo kit before, you've never heard of this tuner at TX2K maybe.
Right.
It's kind of a good resume in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, TX2K.
Yeah, it's weird to call it like a resume for future customers, but it kind of is at the same time, and I think most people in your position probably see it similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary to deal with that. And most people probably haven't built a car. Like, I've built cheaper cars, so I understand how toxic the industry can be.
Sure.
But if your first venture into building a car is this high level, you may get kind of taken a little bit.
Yeah, and the other terrifying part of it is the industry has shifted to, it's no longer win on Sunday, sell on Monday, right? Like that's who made the most viral TikTok video on Sunday sells on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Or the reel on Instagram, or the no offense YouTube video or whatever, but that's the reality. That is the larger way to market in today's day and age in our industry, and that again. That's scary because you get guys that get over their head real quick, especially with these cars, because they're sexy, right? They're sexy. There's a decent amount of money that comes with them. Like, oh, you want to do a $200,000 build? Yes. A lot of guys don't think, oh man, I don't really know how to do that. And I probably shouldn't.
And you're starting with a brand new car is always best for any build, because getting somebody's build that's already been screwed up, nobody wants to deal with that.
Yeah.
So then those people that tried to save a little bit and using a random shop end up with nobody wanting to touch their car.
Yeah.
So it gets even worse because now you have this car that's a full-blown paperweight that nobody will touch. And it's like, it just gets worse and worse. I'm sure there's plenty of cars sitting around that are just nobody wants to touch them.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
just
to your
kind
point
of dead
about
in the water.
Yeah, I agree with you. To your point about the industry heads sharing, I think that's very powerful, especially right now. Like you had Hefner on, you've got like guys like Tony Paulo from T1, Martin at AMS and his crew up there, some of their tuners. I mean, there's a lot of guys, I would love to throw us in that mix. That we have text threads, we share information, because really at the end of the day, what's the saying? The rising tide rises all ships, right? And so there's so many people that are so like this in this industry, and then you have kind of the more like the top, more the top whatever 10% or whatever of the industry, and none of us feel that way. Like I'm not worried about losing a job to Jason Hefner. I'm not worried about losing a job to T1 or to AMS like that. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. That's not and they feel the same. So when they call me and say, "Hey, listen, I've got this problem. Have you seen this before?" I have zero qualms sharing that, and I'm in the same way with them. Like if I call Jason, I say, "Hey, listen, you've been doing this longer than me in these cars. Have you seen this before?" He shares with an open book and that's powerful. It's powerful for the end user, which is really, what does it matter? Like that's what we're all trying to do here, right? Like you can show off all you want, but at the end of the day, the customer experience is what matters. We want these guys to enjoy their cars.
Yeah, I mean, a car making a few Hail Mary passes and then getting secretly loaded up onto the trailer and then showing on the internet, look what we did.
That's a means to an end.
And then you get a bunch of customers that are like, oh man, I can do that. And it's like, well...
Yeah.
The car blew up. What you didn't see was the smoke out the left side exhaust.
Yeah.
And not the right side.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a means to end. And we all have those problems, right? I mean,
cars blow up for sure.
I mean, stuff happens, right? And to the other aura that is bad for the industry right now is that nothing happens, right? Because then you got a guy that gets in it and he's like, oh, I can make 2,000 horsepower reliably. No, you can't. Yes, you maybe. Yes, absolutely. These cars do make 2,000 horsepower, and yes, they do go rounds, and yes, they do go years without having to rebuild. But sometimes the diffs break, and sometimes there's something, you push a head gasket, or sometimes, I mean, that's reality. That's high performance cars, and so I don't like the aura of, nothing ever bad happens. Ever, right? Because you're not setting up the client to win, right? You want the client that understands, hey, listen, this is where very rarely bad things happen, and this is where sometimes bad things happen.
Well, then you got your customer, and nothing against them. They get in their car, and they do 14 highway pulls on setting 5 back-to-back, no cool down time whatsoever, and they're just having a blast. Like, you can't do that. Maybe you can, maybe you could get away with it, but more than likely, something's gonna give because it's making 4 times the power it should from the factory.
The client's not set up to win in that space. I mean, the client needs the information. They need to understand their car. They need to understand limitations. They need to understand. And there's so much of this, like, nothing goes wrong. You have to be as good or better as the guy next to you. And he says on the internet that stuff never breaks. So you have to say on the internet that stuff never breaks. It's just, it's a dog-eat-dog world.
It's like my transmission broke, but the other guy in the pit next to me, his didn't break doing the same thing. It's like, well, luck of the draw in a way.
Sometimes that is the way that it happens, right? And that needs to be, there needs to be more reality in that space in the industry, I believe. But yeah, I again, back to the point of the thing, I believe that the upper tier shops, like you said, are painting that proper picture for people and sharing information and growing the industry. And I hope that we can continue to make it so that we're painting a logical picture to an end user that said that, so that they know this is how you use your car, this is how you don't. If you want a record-breaking car, great. This is what it's going to cost you, and this is what you might need to go through to do it, and this is how long it might take, right?
Yep.
If you want a car that makes 1,200 horsepower that you want to put your wife in and drive to dinner, absolutely, this is what you're going to get. But then don't go drag race it, because then it might break, right?
Yeah, it's a different customer than the guy that says, I want to go win TX2K roll race
100%.
Than the guy that just wants twin turbos.
100%.
Because that's that's a big feat. I don't think people make fun of roll racing a lot, but those miles an hour are a very big feat to achieve. I've been 181 roll racing in my car, and these cars are going much, much faster than that in street trim.
Yeah. What kind of power does your car make?
Probably like 1,400-1,500-ish.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
And no rolling anti-lag or anything, though, so it's kind of like I kind of just had to floor it and hope that the turbo would work.
Yeah, what size turbo is on it?
It's a 86 on it.
Single, right? So like you're I mean, does it even come up on brake boost?
It
tries.
It comes up fine, stopped, but rolling, I was kind of just like holding the brake and trying, and I was just like, maybe it has nitrous on wide open throttle, so that helps.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But it was still like, I mean, I raced the green car, and the green car was out on me, and I just kind of like, as the turbo was spooling up, I was able to creep back on it. It was
stock motor, guys. That was when it was stock motor. Don't let him fool you.
Hey, I'm just rods and pistons, man.
I'm just messing.
I know.
Totally just messing.
No,
with
that
you.
was a good race. That was a really fun one because I talked to, I think it may have been Jordan driving your tuner.
Jan probably,
Jan.
or Taylor.
Taylor. I think it was Taylor.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yes, it was. Yes, it was.
He
Taylor.
said he was trying to go through the settings and go up and boost while he was driving it.
Taylor, don't ever do that with my car again. No, I'm just kidding.
He was like,
He's the tuner, so he knows where he's like, like he does
but
that
he
all
was
day.
kind of fumbling with it.
I'm sure.
He was going 160 at the time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he didn't tell me that story. Well, the nice thing is at least like the cruise control is literally right there.
Yeah.
So.
But when you're cruising at speed, and it was funny him talking about it later because my car, like you can see the in-car, just kind of creeps up, and I think I probably got to the stripe like 1 foot before
Beyond
him.
it, yeah.
It was, there was no shot that it looked like it was going to come around him, but it was funny. It was a good race. But now the car goes probably 20 mile an hour faster.
Yeah, we did 217 in Texas.
Oh, okay. So do they do 1,500 feet in Texas?
I think so. I think as they used to do, I think it used to be 16 and now it's 15, or it used to be 17 and now it's 16. I can't remember.
Yeah, because this was just a 1320.
Right.
Yeah. So what would it do at like Reunion?
I can't remember.
Right? Did they do roll racing at
I don't
Reunion?
think
No,
so.
they didn't.
No.
Yeah. Streetcar Takeover Bradenton. That's where it would last roll raced.
Yeah, probably. And I can't remember I don't even remember what it did. But it was
Not even
different.
Paying attention to the roll race.
I can't. I just can't remember. The car.
It'll probably do like 205.
Yes,
right?
exactly. It's a
In
200 to
1320.
205. Yeah, it went 201 in the quarter in Texas. So, right around in there.
Mm-hmm. But that just shows my full-blown race car versus a stock motor, unopened. Was it on stock ECU still?
No,
or was it on
Motec,
Motec?
yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. What it takes to run with a car like that.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool that platform can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, with the track support is something big that you guys do that a lot other shops, some do it, but not quite to the level you guys do it, to the same. Some do it for big events, but you guys kind of do it across the board for events.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, again, I go back to the customer. I want the customer to enjoy his car, right? And if I've got enough guys that want to go to the racetrack and enjoy their car trackside, then I want to supply a experience for them. I want to make an experience for them, and it's something we really enjoy. It's something I think sets us a little bit apart, which is exciting for us, for our business. But we really enjoy it. I like focusing on the customer experience. That's very important to me. And so if I got 4 guys that want to go to the racetrack, I want that guy to have a blast. I want him to come back to a certain spot, to have a place to park. I want him to have water. I want him to have somebody checking his car. I want to make sure that there's nothing weird going on. Make sure there's not a nail in the tire. Make sure that the thing's got oil in it. The wheels are torqued. And like you said, a lot of guys do it for like Texas and stuff like that. But honestly, the customer experience a lot of times is as good or better at some of the smaller events. They get more run time. They sit in the lanes for less time. They don't have to travel as far. You go to a nice event like the Reunion, Bradenton, that the guys put on. Like, that's a fun event, right? Like, you get a lot of run time. You hang out with your friends. It's not 7 a.m. until midnight every day. There's actually yes, it's something that we do.
You guys have like 3, 4, 5 cars there with 2 techs, so they go there with some confidence that they're not just like, I guess I'm going in blind here.
Right.
Hopefully the car works.
And a tuner.
And the tuner's there, yeah.
Yep. And so
you guys set up the tent and everything, and that's like what you get, I guess, with a lot of these cars too, because my car leaves Induction Performance and they help me out and everything like that, but the racing side is on me. Like, I set up my own tent, I bring my own car, I deal with that myself. It's not the same as like
right.
I know you guys have talked about like you kind of like get into a friend group basically. Is the thought behind that a little bit?
Well, I guess that ends up, I think, just happening, right? Like the camaraderie among the clients just ends up happening. Because generically, we have good clients. They're good people. We attract very quality clientele, which I'm blessed with. And so most of our clients really enjoy each other, and they've become friends with each other outside. And I'll get messages. I was talking to so and so, or talking to so and so, and I mean, heck, I've even had customers that didn't know each other before that now their families go on vacation together. So yeah, that's part of it. I guess the biggest driving force for us is just to try to support. That can be a hairy situation though as well, because, like I charge for that. Right. And I mean, the reality is I can't send 2 technicians, a trailer, a tent, pay for hotels, pay for travel, the whole 9 yards, bring my tuner down here, and just do that at every single event. It just doesn't work. So
yeah, of course not. I mean, techs are not free, tuners not free. Like that stuff takes a lot.
No. And I used to road race a little bit, and you wouldn't, you pay $20,000-$30,000 for a weekend is not out of the realm of possibility. If you're going to go there and somebody's just going to support your car, and you're going to come in and drive the car and they're going to take care of it. Obviously, I don't charge anywhere near that much, but
yeah, I mean, well, you look at like somebody like Vortec who does the Porsche stuff up in Tampa, and they, car comes back for service, it needs new brakes, it needs new tires, it needs, like, after a road course weekend, it's hard on a car.
Yeah,
like drag racing is a little easier on a car. You don't need quite this level of service, but even after that, I'm sure you guys service the cars.
Yeah, for sure, when they need it, absolutely.
I don't know how often they'll need like an oil change after a beating like that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. Sometimes we do that, and of course, I mean, if something goes awry, last event out, I think it was the reunion, I broke my diff in the R8, and with the event before that, we had a customer do that as well. So then we just take it back to the shop and fix it or whatever.
Front diff or rear?
Rear. Yeah, we're having issues with the wave tracks on those cars, but they're trying to fix it. So. But anyway, yeah, so it mostly is an experience. And I've leveled that experience up. I've tried to figure out exactly what the sweet spot is. But yes, it's something we do that a lot of other shops don't for all the small events. And we enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And for something like TX2K, I know we were talking a little bit about that. You guys were recently out there. That's a whole event in itself, I'm sure.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure most customers that aren't expecting that are kind of surprised when they realize how long it really is.
Oh, wow. Well, this year was even more, right? So it was, Tuesday to Sunday this year. And normally it's Wednesday through,
That's that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a long event. It's fun. It's a long event. We've been going to Texas since 2010. Nope, that's not true. 2012 was our first year. And we've gone every single year. At the peak, we had 36 cars. 36 cars.
Wearing a tuner out.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And we had several years that we had in the 20s of cars. And then, of course, a lot of years, most years we have like 15 to 20. I backed it off from it was just too much.
That's a lot. That's a tough thing to even keep track of.
Oh, and then we did hospitality where and we still do for any of the major events. We have a whole tent with hospitality, so you can get out in the sun. You have food, you have water. We bring in breakfast. We have coffee every morning, bagels, like all of that. It's a circus. It is a thing, right? And it is not an easy thing to put on. It's not an easy thing to set everything up. And we cater lunch every single day for like this year in Texas. I mean, catered lunch every single day, breakfast every single day, coffee every morning for all the staff and all the clients. But again, that's that experience. The guy it was something he enjoyed. It was an event, right? It wasn't just going there just for the drag racing or just for the roll racing. You go there, hang out with people, you have nice meals, you turn it into an experience.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a vacation in a way, and you can justify your car a little bit more too. Like, oh, well, I built this car, but look at what I get to do with it. Like,
absolutely.
I get to use it in this setting and network with these people because, like we were saying, like, they become friends because they're not successful people, like being fully obviously they're not like just random people off the street. Like they're
for sure.
They've gotten somewhere in this world.
They're cut of similar cloth usually.
Exactly.
Yes, for sure. It is, and that experience is important. And I think with racing, especially drag racing and roll racing, I think we've gotten to the point where we focus way too hard on the racing because, what are you doing? There's got to be a plastic trophy around here somewhere. You're going to win what, right? Like
no trophies in this room. Just that one, actually.
Okay.
No, I have some in my office. I have some in my office.
But no, you're going to do what? You're winning $1,500 in a plastic trophy. Like you're not there for. That's not what you're there for, right? You're there to enjoy an experience. And I think people get so caught up in the fact that they're like, oh, we're going to Texas 2K to go drag racing. No, you're going to Texas 2K to hang out with like-minded people that love cars, right? You're going to do a little bit of racing. You're going to go to Texas Roadhouse or go to a dinner, and you're going to enjoy some time. Maybe you're going to talk I don't know, business. Maybe you're going to talk investment strategy with a guy next to you that also is extremely successful. Maybe you're going to talk politics. Who the heck knows what you're going to do? But you're around like-minded people, and like you said, it is a mini vacation. People get way too caught up in this, like, I'm going racing. No, you aren't. Like, I mean, you are, but you're not, right? Like,
that's why I was kind of sad to see the GTR World Cup or DCT World Cup not make it back this year, because Eric and
Bryn.
yeah, they were doing a really good job with making that like a different experience for the drivers.
Yes.
They did a really cool job on like making that a like legitimate just driver's race.
I think there needs to be more of that, right? Like we need to incorporate more, like we have a little drag race day and then we do a rally down to some place and hang out at, whatever, the Four Seasons or the Ritz or whatever it may be, right? Like, because I think we're just so focused on this. Well, I don't want to say we. There's a lot of the industry that is so focused on this racing side of things. And don't get me wrong, there is that side of the industry. You're a little bit more involved in that side of the industry than I am. I'm more on the streetcar side. You're more probably in the race car side. Like I know Victor, like obviously huge into the race car side of things. Like that's racing. Yeah. What we do in like the DCT classes and stuff, that's us going out, enjoying our cars, high-fiving some people, and leaving. That's not racing.
Yeah, because they make.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I'm going to get hated on here.
They make a class for you guys
right.
to use your cars, basically.
Right,
but it's a class to use your car.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Nobody remembers who won DCT like last year in Texas. That's not like a thing. It's just like you're going there to enjoy your car, and people are losing sight of that. I think, and I think that needs to change a little bit.
The only class that runs a sportsman tree.
Right.
Because they can't quite leave right. And even then, you're like, wait, that guy just left 3 seconds after the tree dropped. What was going on there? And I saw one. I was like, why did he wait so long? Like, I get the car wasn't in boost, but, like, he still should have just left. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if it wasn't on the brake quite right, I was like, it would have been better to try to leave with the guy and not be in full boost than it would have been to...
Most of the guys aren't racers, and that's to my point. Like, they don't need to be. They don't want to be, right? Like, some of them do, and that's wonderful, right? But let's get real. You want to be a real drag racer, don't build a Performante, right? Build a Fox body, right? Like, if you want to go drag racing, do not build a brand new R8 or a brand new Performante. If you want a car that will run 8s or high 7s and you can still enjoy on the street and you can still have some fun with, absolutely. There's no better platform that they're amazing. But like, they're not drag racing cars.
Yeah, you'll really enjoy a trans brake, like a legitimate trans brake, if you've never experienced one like some of these other.
100%. Well, it's just like road racing, right? Like not to interrupt you, but
no, you're fine.
I road raced a lot of street cars. So I started with GTRs, did some Porsche stuff, this, that, whatever, and it was all like street cars. And then I remember the first time I got in a Porsche Cup car, and I was like, holy crap. Like, this car was built to be here, right? Like, totally different experience. Like, not even close to the same experience. I know, like, every single time I got in a street car after this, I just felt like I was beating the living crap out of something that did not belong there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have a
kind of makes you a little sad in a way. You're like,
yeah, you're like, you feel bad for the thing, right? Like, once you've been in something that's like, this is a purpose built, like I've got a little Lotus race car right now. It's like literally a factory Lotus, like cup car, and it is the most fun thing to drive on track. But then if I went to go like get in my daily driver, which is like an Alfa Romeo Quattrofoglio, like that's an amazing little track car. It runs great, but you get in it and you're like, why am I doing this to this car? It's very similar.
You just like think about like the bushings and like the trans and the oil and stuff, and you're just like, like, I don't need to have to service this thing. Like, I don't want to. I don't need the diff to go out on me because I'm beating it so hard. And it's probably 4,800 pounds or something crazy.
Right. Like, and that's exactly the same thing with the drag racing stuff. It's like once you get in a purpose-built drag car, it's a blast. But you're in a purpose-built drag car, right?
Then it comes with all of the purpose-built drag car drama.
Yep.
And I think people try to avoid some of that drama with like a V10 because it does appear from the outside looking in a lot less drama filled, and whether that's true or not when you really do it is kind of up to the shop you choose in a way.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to see that market and that side of the industry really catered to in the way that they deserve to be catered. Not deserve, the way that those cars should be used. They should be used in like, let's go out, let's run some bottom eights, some high sevens, let's do a little roll race where you can race your buddy, and then let's go do something that's not racing centric, right? And that's what we're trying to do at Texas and other things where we have like, I mean, heck, we had a cornhole tournament, like at Texas in the pits, like let's have some fun, right? Let's enjoy each other's company. Just like the old days of just going and sitting in a parking lot and talking cars. I mean, like that's the car show.
You got to entertain them a little bit too. I mean, if you got your tuner working on the car and you got your techs working on the car, you got to give them something to do. You got to.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and I think too bored, they'll start working on their own car.
Yeah, right. I don't think that's a thing in this side of the industry. But anyway, so yeah, I think that the drag racing side, I guess my point is I don't want to see what happened to the GTR happened to the R8 and the Lamborghini.
That's interesting. I haven't realized the parallel that maybe we're just 8 years off or whatever, 6 years off, 5 years off from the GTR kind of burning everyone out.
I hope not. These cars are more reliable and this and that, but what does that mean? That means that us stupid men that can't leave well enough alone are just going to make them fast enough until they start braking. And I don't want to see us push this side of the market in that space because I don't believe that would be good for the industry as a whole. So I really want to see events that are a little bit more centric on the customer enjoying their car in a way that's not racing.
I will say I am in that V10 group, and there's a lot of chest beating. You're definitely one of them. No, you posting the 750 the other day.
Yeah, you have to a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's fun because all the shop owners are in there and they post back and forth on draggy stuff and quarter mile times and who did what, and it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, I try to be gentle with it. I'm just not a big. You say chest beating. I agree with you there. You have to do a certain amount of it to market your company. I'm not really huge on that. I like saying, hey, this is what we accomplished because I'm proud of it, right? And I am. I'm proud of that car.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
It is. And we build the engines. I mean, that's another thing I'd love to talk about. I own the machine shop. We own our own machine shop. So that's another thing I'm extremely proud of. I'm extremely proud of the fact that we did the engine in that car, start to finish, top to bottom. We know everything about it. We've heard it. We've fixed it. We figured things out. And it's working, and it's working super, super well, and I'm very proud of that. So I want to show people, hey, listen, this is something I'm proud of, just like you would if you just had a kid. You want to put it on Facebook. Hey, listen, I'm proud of this. This is absolutely
took a lot of work.
Exactly.
Please look at it.
It still does, right? It's something you're proud of, and so that is the spirit in which I brag, if you will. I'm not really a big we did this and you can't. I hate that type of marketing. I like standing on what we can do, not what somebody else can't do, right? I don't like we're faster than so-and-so. Well, just tell me how fast you are. You don't have to tell me what so-and-so did. Just stand on what you did. Stand on your own accomplishments. And that's what we try. That's what we try to do. But you're right. There is definitely a lot of little poking that goes on in some of those groups.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Especially the shop talk one. No need to publicize it, but yeah, I mean it's definitely a very it's a fun group to be in for that reason.
It is
because there's a lot of.
Well, and that transitions me into the kind of the conversation that it's an interesting dynamic with shops because a lot of times shop owners are not really businessmen, right? A lot of times shop owners they're mechanics, they're tuners, they're passion-based people, which
that's what Hefner's told me. He's like, I just love building cars.
Absolutely.
He's like, the business side of things is annoying. I just want to build and race cars. He's a drag racer.
Yes. Hefner has done a very good job with the business part of things, even though he didn't necessarily want to do that. But there is a large dynamic of difference between the guy that is was the mechanic, no harm, there's nothing bad about it, or the tuner that started a business because he got popular doing what he was doing, versus a guy that's focused on the business aspects. And business aspects are different, right? If you're a racer, your focuses are going fast, beating the guy next to you, being competitive, right? If you're a business person, right, your focus is the customer experience, the quality of product, the consistency of product, the repeatability of that product, right? Which is one of the reasons that we've scaled to what we've scaled to as far as multiple locations, because that was my focus. My focus wasn't like, I'm going to beat this guy next to me. My focus wasn't, I'm better than this guy. I'm faster than this guy. My focus was, what am I doing? I want to provide a product to an end user that he can then enjoy, to therefore build the entire community as a whole, right? And so in a positive way.
Yeah.
And if you focus on that, and if you focus on the quality of the product, the repeatability of the product, the processes that go into making that product, and the people you partner with, and then that end customer experience, that's a business way to go about growing a performance side of an industry that I believe is a positive way. And I believe, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or hate on anything or whatever, but like there's a lot of really weird, I don't want to call it hatred because it's not hatred, but a lot of really weird bickering and a lot of really weird like fighting within this industry that I think is just like one of the dumbest things I've ever experienced, because we all love the same thing. None of us are out here like for any reason other than the fact that we love cars and we love making cars fast and we enjoy other car people. We're like-minded. You know, I like boating, right? Like, why do I like boating? One of the big reasons I like boating is because all the boating people are like, they're very like-minded people, right? Like you go hang out at a marina, most of the time, the people that are hanging out there, you don't have a lot of anomalies here. You have a lot of like very like-minded people. And the same with the car world, right? And so it's interesting to me because you have these guys that then, because there's an ego-driven situation for a shop owner, because he was a tuner or a mechanic and started a shop because he was faster than the guy next to him, and then 5 people came to him because he was faster than the other guy, right? And then more people came to him, then he hired another technician, and that's how that grew, right? Because he was the one that was faster than the other guy, and then that kind of sticks with them. And then now they don't like that other guy. And this guy doesn't like him because, oh, he's fast. He thinks he's better than me, this, that, whatever. Like he says his stuff never breaks. And I know his stuff breaks. And I've heard the secrets. And you're in the industry. You understand all that. When really...
Cars break secretly.
Yeah, right.
I hate that. I hate cars breaking secretly.
Me too.
It bugs me.
Absolutely. It paints a picture that's false.
Yeah.
Right?
Like shops have NDAs that you sign. That's just crazy.
I don't even understand how that's possible.
To have your customer sign an NDA before they get delivery of their car.
I had a customer, well, I'll dig into that story in a second, but yeah, so I really, my goal and what I would hope to do is I really hope that there's more people like, again, Jason, you had him on, he's awesome. Yep. Tony is awesome. Martin is awesome. And I'm not going to name all of them, but like there's a group of people in the industry that are really trying to grow it in a positive way. And when we look at each other at the pits, I don't think to myself and they don't think to themselves, you know, screw that guy. He's slower. I'm faster. That, whatever. I build a better motor. I know his stuff screwed up. You know, we think to ourselves, you know what? I saw the other day that something happened on his YouTube or whatever, and I know how to fix that. Maybe I'll grab a beer with him and tell him, because again, rising tide raises all ships. If we can make the customer experience better for everybody, there's only just going to be more customers for all of us.
Yeah, I know Jason's one of those guys where a lot of people reach out to him, but then he doesn't seem to get the flowers that he kind of deserves in that when you hear about all the people that go to Jason when they have problems, like transmission or diff broken or like things like that, or engine issues, and like a lot of people don't realize that how many people reach out to Jason that are in the industry. Oh,
absolutely. And he's a staple, right? I mean, he's just like, and he knows this. I'm very close to Jason. In fact, I'm going there when I leave here. He's an awesome guy. And he's that guy that, like, when I was growing up, I'm not young, but I'm not, like, I was like, oh my gosh, Hefner, right? Like, I mean,
that was my first twin turbo Lamborghini I saw was like a big Hefner on the side of it. And I was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was like the name that burned into my brain right away.
And a very, very smart man. Very smart man. Yep. And not cocky. Not, he knows what he's got. He knows what he is, but he's a walks off, carry a big stick kind of guy. That's just who he is, right?
He's like, this worked for me. And I was like, okay. Like, he's not going to be like, that stupid, that doesn't work. He's like, this is what I did and it worked for me.
Absolutely.
Like he won't like just completely wreck somebody's idea that they're trying for, which is cool. Because I got to spend a lot of time at Reunion talking to him because it was hot and there was nothing going on for hours of that day.
And that sandstorm thing, that was crazy or whatever.
So we just kind of were hanging out, and he was telling me a little bit about the industry, back end stuff, and
Jason and I talk. We get on an hour-long industry conversation once a week.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. I'll call him about a transmission, or I'll call him about something, or he'll call me about something, and then it'll be like, well, did you hear blah blah? And then it'll be an hour-long rant of something to do with the industry as a whole. Not rant. I don't want to call it a rant, but download.
it can
Meeting of the minds, as you will.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I know the NDA thing's crazy. I couldn't believe when I heard that for the first time.
Well,
that shops make people.
I was in
sign
Texas,
NDAs.
so I'll give you a little story. I was in Texas, and I'm not gonna obviously share any names. So I was in Texas, and I had a customer come up to me, and he says, "Hey, listen, my car's at this shop, and it's pulled apart, and it's been there for 1.5 years, and I want to bring it to you, but I can't pull it out of there." I said, "Okay, why?" He said, "I can't tell you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, I can't tell you why I can't pull this car out of this specific shop, because I can't, but I want to, and if I can figure this out legally, then I'm going to tell you all of the details about it, because I think you deserve to know. But like I can't tell you, and I really want this thing, but I've signed too much, and I just can't do it." And I'm thinking to myself, how is that reality in our industry right now? Like, how are you a business owner? Not only just a business owner in general, but how are you a car guy that this guy owns his car. He wants to take his car someplace else. Like, how do you put your head on a pillow at night knowing that you're forcefully holding these guys against their will, or forcefully stopping them from saying something that is truth, right? Like, maybe just stop doing the stuff that you're scared of people saying.
Yeah, like if you have to stop somebody from talking about it, you should just stop doing it.
Right? Like, I mean, maybe just do that, right? Like, maybe just think about all the things that you're scared of somebody saying to anybody else, and just don't do them.
Yes.
That would probably be a better route.
You would think, one's best judgment would think, a gag order is not the best route to
And then the other thing that
keep a happy customer.
that I don't understand, how do these people not piss off the wrong guy? Because, like, I'm a shop owner, and I believe that I am one of the bigger, if you will, and I'm broke. I mean, we don't make a lot of money, right? Like, this isn't an industry that makes a lot of money. I'm not worth millions of dollars.
Automotive is not the...
No, right? Absolutely. So I look at this guy, and I'm like, you're scared of him? Well, how much is your lawyer per hour? Because I guarantee you his is his buddy or his neighbor or something, because I know how much money he probably makes. Like, how does this guy... Two things. How do they not piss off the wrong guy that's got enough money to just bury them, right? And how do they not piss off the wrong guy that's literally gonna bury them?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I don't...
Well, I have a friend, and I know you know him too. He was so unhappy with the shop, he started his own shop. That was how he started his shop. He was just unhappy with the service he was getting, and it was more early to get out of a shop that's now collapsing, and just started his own deal. He was like, I'll just hire the guys that work there. I'll just leave.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's what I did. I mean, I started in 2008, I guess it was. And it was out of the same thing. It was out of negative experience. I was like, this is such an amazing industry. This is such an amazing people. What's an incredible group of people. Okay, I just loved the industry. But like, every place I went, it was some other excuse, something, some bad experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if we could just create good experiences in this awesome industry for these awesome people, man, it could really be cool, right? And
a lot of cars look really nice on the surface too. And then when you start, like, you take a couple plastic panels off, and you're like, oh shit.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a whole nother can of worm. I mean, honestly, and I don't want to keep on bringing him up, but I talk to him a lot. That's something Jason and I talk about a lot. It's like, no, you can't get the same car. Because I get all that. Oh, well, this company will give me the same thing for less. No, they won't.
On paper.
Yes, no, they won't.
Yeah,
right?
On a piece of paper, on a dyno sheet, maybe, but in usability and in
longevity, and you were talking to Aaron about this, about how their engine bays look stock, and how they put so much work into that, like the fittings and the finishes and the stuff. Like, that's not a cheap and easy thing, and that's a compliment to him. But that happens a lot. Well, so I got a quote from so-and-so, and they can build, they can give me the same amount of horsepower for, no, that's not, no, they can't. No, I'm sorry. That's not a reality. And just to your point, you pull a panel off, and this is held on by a zip tie, and that's got a wood screw in it, and that doesn't even have screws in it.
Yep. You park it, and then you move it, and you're like, why is there a puddle of red fluid and then a puddle of oil, and why is there 3 drip spots? And
which, to go back to the V10 world, that is hiding a lot of that because that car is so capable. Yeah. So there is a lot of that. There's a lot of people, and again, we won't say names. There's been some major stuff here in the last month or so that's kind of come to light, right? We're not going to, but it's like, right?
I don't need anybody coming after me.
Right, exactly. So we won't throw it, but I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that the car has actually kind of hidden because it's such a capable automobile. You can literally, like I said, you can kind of sneeze at it and kick it, and for a while, it'll make power.
It's funny because I heard a similar thing from Jay at Real Street. He was telling me, like, we were just talking about 2Js once, and he was like, yeah, I saw these people tuning a 2J, and they were making power, and, like, I saw they were doing everything wrong. It was spark knocking, and it was, like, wasn't running right, and, like, it sounded terrible, and he was like, they were doing everything wrong and it still didn't break. He was like, that's why I got into it, because I was like, oh, there's so much more.
They can do that. right.
And I was like, oh, that's an interesting reason to get into it, because he was just like, they just sucked at what they were doing. So I just wanted to try.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. And the 2J is a good example of that. And so is the V10 stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do. I mean, heck, stock motor cars are going 180, 185 miles an hour. Should they be? No, probably not, but they are.
But even when you talk about, stock motor versus like built motor, are we talking rods, pistons? Like cams always stay the same, cylinder head, right?
Cams always stayed the same previously. They don't do that. It's not anymore. They don't.
This has just been recent.
This has just been recent. Yep. There is a decent amount of technology that goes into the V10 stuff. So the machine shop is like my, I don't want to call it a pet project, because that sounds, it's like it makes it seem, it's something I love. I love engines. I love attention to detail. I love repeatability. That's why I love the business side of things. I love making processes. I love making it so that this particular package of mine is the same every single time, no matter if it's done in Florida or Georgia or Virginia by 3 different technicians.
10 cars roll out, there shouldn't be a 15% variation in what they do.
And I love that stuff. And so the engine side of things is fascinating to me, because I love attention to detail. I love figuring that stuff. I love if-then type of stuff. And I love understanding why something failed and trying to make it better. It's just fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. So the engine side of things has been a blast. It's been doing it for 2 years. Started with obviously our GTR stuff, and then we moved into the V10 stuff.
And that was just like out of necessity type of deal?
Well, we had a great machine shop that we were working with, John Causey Race Engines. I don't know if you've heard of him, but they do it. They're amazing. They're just an awesome shop, mostly Mustang stuff. And he is an awesome man. Really enjoyed working with them. The issues were a few things, and this is exciting. I'm excited to talk about this with you. There's a few issues. Number one, lead times, right? Lead times were rough on me, right?
Of course, you're on his schedule.
Right, and he's got other clients, right? Yeah. And I'm not, I was a large client of his, but hey, you got to take care of other people. So there was times when it was months and excuses and so on and so forth. Not a ton, but still, waiting 2 or 3 months for an engine, that was tough. The other thing was, and this is the big one, and this is why I'm so excited and proud about the machine shop, is that I did not that he did this, but the finger pointing and the lack of ability to really nail down what happened here, right? Like what happened? This failed. Yeah. What happened? We roasted main bearings, right? Like what exactly were the main bearing clearances? How straight was the crank? Is the crank cracked? What was the tune? How hot did we run the tune? How much did we launch the car? How lean was it? Who was the guy that installed it and how good was he? It was very hard for me to draw a very accurate, defined conclusion. Mm-hmm. And because, any machine shop, it's just like, well, you roasted the main bearings out of it and we think the clearances were where we set the other one, so you must have the tune too hot. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't, right? Maybe it was something completely different. Maybe it was the oil we were using. Maybe it was foaming the oil. Maybe it was, whatever it may be.
Flexing the crank or something.
Who knows? Right? And so I couldn't get to the bottom, like right to the nitty gritty. So I thought to myself, the only way I'm going to get to the nitty gritty is to remove all finger pointing and take all the, so that I know, like, I can just talk to my tuner and say, hey, listen, how hot did you run this thing? And I can talk to the engine builder and say, hey, because I'm paying their paychecks, right? Yeah. Like that, it's all under one roof. We're all succeeding together, is the main goal.
Yep.
Right.
And taking apart an engine also before it's catastrophically failed
big time.
is way more important than people realize as well.
Big time.
And I learned a lot of that from Joe at Fast Forward.
Oh, yeah.
And those guys, they pull apart an engine before it's got
or
a
try
rod
to,
out
or try
the
to,
side.
right? Yeah,
Hopefully.
we all do, right?
Exactly, because then you learn a lot more than an engine that's just scattered itself.
Right, right. Joe's a good guy. I was with Joe. Joe built my GTR engines. He'd never seen a GTR engine when I came to him. He's a good guy.
He's so smart. You wouldn't realize because he's just like this, hanging out in flip flops, and then like you talk to him and you're like, wow, okay.
He's been through a lot.
Yeah.
You know, he's learned a lot. He's broken a lot of stuff, and not only has he broken a lot of stuff, then he's learned from those mistakes, whether they be his or somebody else's mistakes. You know, yeah, I like Joe. He's a good dude. Anyway, so the engine side of things, and he's a competitor now. So no, that's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun. So the V10 stuff, it is interesting. It is a growing market. What the blocks will take without sleeving, what sleeving does to the blocks and how weak it makes them, what the all-sill is what's happening with the all-sill and the coating on the pistons and the ring packs and how those things are working with the all-sill and whether they're taking all-sill away from the sleeves and so on and so forth. Main studs, head studs stuff is very interesting because they have a tendency to crack in certain places, which is a learning experience. Then the heads also, a lot of people just slap the heads on them. There's a lot of little stuff to know and understand. I mean, you're talking about a hydraulic lifter with a rocker, and you're upping. I mean, the seat pressure on those things factory is like 27 pounds, where you're going up to like 90 to 100, right? So like you're working that entire rocker system completely different than it was designed to be. That's been very interesting to learn and understand. And then of course introducing different cams because there's different cams. The R8's got a different cam than the Huracan. The Huracan's got a different cam than the Perf and the STO. And then of course now you have aftermarket cams.
Is that where they get that like 5 horsepower from that they?
Yeah. The Perf, the Evo, and the STO have the same cam.
Yeah.
I believe all years. I don't know.
They do different valves in those too, right?
Yes, they have titanium intake valves.
Yeah.
In the Perf, the Huracan, or the Perf, the Evo, and the STO.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much, like you're saying, into the engine program with the sleeves and the piston combo is where it's coming down to. If it's getting to the bottom of the sleeve, starting to rattle, and like stupid little things like that may get overlooked pretty easily on most. And if you're trying to get that extra 5% out of a car or extra 1%, those little things are going to really bite you.
Yep, that and all kinds of. It's very interesting. The pin design on most of the pistons and some of the stuff that we're learning about that. Like it's a young industry, right? I mean, you got to think about it. How long have people been consistently making 2,000 plus horsepower on built motor V10s that wasn't just one shop? Like what, 2 years, a year and a half? I mean, it hasn't been a long time, right? This is not a one shop has done it. Hefner's done it and UGR has done it, but like the whole the industry growing like it is right now, and there being as many people in the game, that's very new. So we're learning a lot. The cranks are bending, and there's interesting stuff happening there. Harmonic balancer issues. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
I mean, my crank, I've had that problem where it starts to flex at certain power levels on the 1-2 shift. It'll start to get a little bit of flex in it and eat some bearings up and stuff. And it's just those little things that only a real an engine builder that's gone through all of it will understand.
Well, there's no replacement for experience, right? Yeah. So that's just reality. You can be the smartest person in the world, and until you get some experience under your belt, it doesn't really matter.
In theory, this engine could work great, but put it in a car and
and in those things, I mean, you're doing something that shouldn't be done. So obviously, it's going to do something it shouldn't do, right? That you're not going to have forethought about. It's really cool. The engine side of things has been a lot of fun for me. The GTR stuff as well, just taking that all kind of under our own wing, understanding it, growing with it. And like I said, it's powerful because I'm not hiring an outside tuner, which is a big deal. I'm not paying somebody else to build my engines, and I'm not paying another person to do the install. Hefner does the transmissions because he's awesome, and I trust him to do that. But we talk a lot. And he's also, like you said, he's not the guy to pass the buck. He's going to tell you what's real and what's not, and what if he screwed something up, if he didn't, the manufacturer did. And so the program is very exciting because There's no secrets. There's no hiding of information. There's none of this. There's no, oh, the tuner did it. Sorry, he must have
It's
been.
not the installer's fault. It's not. Yeah, it all comes.
The buck stops here.
Yeah, the car from start to finish, you guys handle the whole nine instead of just outsource the whole thing.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, the outsource is like I said, it's Hefner, and then whatever. But even the parts like our turbo kit, we have them made by Extreme Turbo Systems. But we like, hey, we want these turbos, and we want them placed like this, and we want the exhaust this size. They're our manufacturing partner. They're some of my best friends, JR from ETS.
Yeah, ETS has been around. I mean, they've been
smart guys and awesome.
High on the game forever.
And awesome, just awesome men and racers, But they're a manufacturing partner where they're never going to say, oh, you did something. We're a team, and that's been extremely powerful as well. So yeah, that's exciting. Like I said, the machine shop has definitely been my, I love it. That's who as soon as when I came in and said, I got to call this guy back, that was my guy that runs my machine shop.
Yeah. Where's the machine shop? Is it in Georgia?
It's in Georgia.
Okay. Yeah.
And so what happens is the other two satellite shops, they pull a motor, they pull all the accessories off of it if they're going to build a motor, and they crate it and they send it to Georgia.
Do the engines that leave your machine shop only end up in cars that you guys are building?
No. So
or do other companies outsource to you?
Yes. So I pick those companies because we already can't keep up with ourselves, right? Like I can't, the machine shop can't keep up with the three shops. We're borderline, I should say. But there are shops that I have created wonderful relationships with the owners that I want to help, and they need, they need a good engine shop and somebody that's not going to excuses or take 6 months or whatever it may be, unless you tell them up front it's going to take 6 months. So we probably build for maybe 5 different shops worldwide, 3 in the United States and 2 overseas.
Like Middle East or something like that, or
1 Europe and 1 Middle East.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of the car industry in the Middle East. Doesn't even make sense either.
No, it doesn't.
It's huge. Even in Australia, there's actually quite a bit of twin turbo V10 platforms popping up, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't ever been over there, and I haven't followed it much, but that whole side of the world, I mean, you have Dodson over there, and you have some other major companies over there. We've got a couple of companies that we do some business with over there.
They have really good manufacturing in Australia as well. It seems like all the billet parts that I've ever seen come from there always seem like they're of high quality parts.
Yeah. No, yeah, New Zealand and Australia, right?
Yep.
They're both, I think they're both, they put out an awesome product. So, but yeah, so that's the answer to that question. My goal is to scale that company. The machine shop it's its own entity. Cicio Powertrain is the name of it. It's its own entity. To scale that aside from the other businesses. Like my goal would be to make it so that is a staple company that builds high performance engines for these type of cars for industry wide. Even competitors, right? Like I would love to build Hefner's motors for him. I would love to build, I don't know, Justin from Auto Trends or Tony from T1 or, AMS has their own program, I believe. But
yeah, a lot of people won't touch a motor platform like that. Not a lot of machine shops want to venture into something quite like that. That many chains, that many cams.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Like I've looked at those engines a couple times at Hefner's, and I'm just like, there's a lot going on here.
There is, and
it's not an LS
for an engine builder. It's high risk, right? Because nothing's cheap. Yeah. Something goes wrong, and nothing is cheap. Nothing is cheap. Nothing's easily accessible. It's not an LS, right? It's not an LT. It's not an easy engine to just replace something on.
Yeah.
And so that's where I believe we have the advantage of the fact that like I can build one and put it in my own car and go see what it'll take or what it won't take.
Yeah, like my engine can come out in 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
So like, if we're trying something, if it's like, maybe this is a good try, like maybe this will work, this package will work better. It's not like a huge undertaking to try it.
Yeah. And with a turbo kit on a V10, it's 100
hours.
Yep.
Whew. Just to deassemble.
Yep. To get it.
Just to get the long block out.
Long block out, all the accessories off, like to where you could sit there and go, okay, here's the engine, what happened, or here's the engine, I want to build it. It's 100 hours. That's the reality. That's how you do it right. Now, don't get me wrong. and I'm sure there'll be some people like
I'll do it in 40.
You can and just like
Yeah.
like there can be piles of bolts and fenders and pieces, and you could do that in 30 or
But
whatever.
you take things off. You
My mentality is when I take something apart, I want anybody in my company to be able to put it back together, right? Like I operate on, this is kind of cryptic, but I operate on the hit by the bus mentality, meaning like if somebody leaves and they get hit by a bus, that's so I should
Sorry,
please
Tony.
edit that out.
I know Tony that works there. So.
Anyway, so somebody else can put it. So we take it apart. We have bins. These bolts go in here. These bolts go in there. So that somebody else. We don't do this, but if we had to, hey, listen, I had an emergency. My wife's had in labor. This, that, whatever. Somebody else has to put this car together. It is everything is labeled. The wiring harness is laid in a certain way. Everything, like that's the way that it's. So that's why I say 100 hours, where somebody might say, oh, no way, oh my gosh, I could do that in way. Maybe you could, and maybe you could be the one to put it back together, and maybe it would go back together the same way it came apart, and maybe no bolts would be cross-threaded or broken or whatever it may be. But we don't put things together with zip guns, and we don't take things apart without organizing them so that anybody could put them back together in my company.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
I'll take a break. So where were we? We were talking machine shop. You want to talk a little bit about new developing platforms? Because that's an interesting world in itself. The C8, I actually posted the other day. I kind of called it. I was asking if it was a flop to a lot of people because, it has so much potential. And it just, it's like so close to being so good.
Yeah.
If tuning and trans were just better.
Yeah.
That seems like the Achilles on it. And you guys have a twin turbo C8. I think how fast has it been? It's been
9.1s or 9.2s or something like that.
yeah, and like it's a cool car. It makes all the right sounds and stuff, but it's like it's just something about it that just like kind of frustrating, I guess.
Big time, and I don't disagree with you there. I mean, we started at the very, very beginning. My car was this sounds like a high number, but it was like number 2,300 off the shore. So it was very beginning, and we fought the uphill battle.
Yeah.
Of no tuning and trying to piggyback and trick things and
Yep.
all of that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so we fought that uphill battle trying to figure all those things out, and then HP tuners came in and so that we could tune it. Yes, you are
The tuning on the engine side is now coming out more, but the trans side is still a little touchy, right?
It is impossible. So that's the big problem now. Okay, so first of all, some of the transmission stuff, I have to be careful here. Some of the transmission stuff is also extremely inconsistent. And that's very hard on us because GM has revised the clutch and the stator situation several times. In fact, they just did a full stop sale on the factory clutches and came out with a new one that you didn't have to buy a new stator for and a whole unit. So why did they do that? They've had
Just shows how confident they were in their original design.
Yeah, they've had to. Well, and it's a Tremec trans, so. And that's been a tough on us because we do an aftermarket clutch in one car and it holds different than an aftermarket clutch in the other car, the same clutch in a different car. And then the client's like, well, I don't understand. And we're like, well, neither do we, because there's just inconsistencies in some of the manufacturing stuff. So that's been tough. Now, the backside of that is like you said, the TCU tuning. Okay. So TCU tuning does a couple of things. Number one, and the biggest thing right now would be clutch pressures and being able to actually clamp the clutch harder, because the way that they're designed, or the way that they're programmed, I should say, is that when they ramp the clutch pressure back in, they do that very slowly. And so it's very hard to clamp after a shift. You just, because you have no control over how that happens. So it's almost like you would be shifting a manual car and you just let the clutch out really, really slow, no matter how fast you were trying to go, right? And you'd be like, why is this car not moving forward? You're like, oh, that's why. And so there's that side of things. Then, of course, just overall increasing the pressures. But the other thing is that we can't change the rev limiter, because you have the rev limiter in the ECU and then you have a torque limiter in the transmission that you cannot up, which is killing the performance on the car, because I can't spin the car further than 6,400 RPM. And it's destroying, because the gearing's horrible.
Yeah.
Right? And how do you get over a horrible gearing? Well, you rev the thing, right? Like you change where you can shift the thing, and all of a sudden, that actually comes into a window where it's actually usable. We can't do that.
Low RPM. That's so sad.
I know it is. And so right now that's our biggest problem. It's just like we were talking about with the R8s. Why are the R8s in the V10 market, the Lamborghinis and the R8s popular? Because they're fast, right? Same with the TTRS and the RS3. That they're fast. The cars are very capable and fast. Yep. So more people want to modify them. The C8s, we haven't been able to make them fast yet. There's
even the new Supra. The new
fast.
Supra goes 7s.
Fast.
Plenty of them are going 7s.
Or the new BMW, fast. Yeah. G80, is that what that?
Yep. Yeah. Same motor as the Supra.
Right. Dang.
All-wheel drive option.
Awesome. Amazing. Fast car. Yep. C8, not fast. Like they're just not fast, And
it looks and sounds and feels like you got this race car, and then you're like mid-9s.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with mid-9s, but the hardware it takes to do it isn't comparable.
I know.
That's where you have that disconnect. Mid-9s is fine in a car that should be running mid-9s.
Right. Yeah. If you could put $10,000 in one and make it run mid-9s, it'd be fine. But you can't, right? You got a supercharger, a twin turbo it, and you got to do this and build that and build the motor. That will all change. I know when HP Tuners, which they're working on right now, actually cracks the TCU in that car, the whole market's going to change, because immediately you'll be able to clamp the clutch and you'll be able to spin the thing 1,000 RPM more.
Yeah.
It's going to bring the transmission into the window, the shift points into the window, the torque curve into the window. It's going to make it so you can clamp the clutch no matter what. It can throw a bunch of clutch pressure at that thing, which is going to make a huge difference. And then the car is going to be actually fast, right?
I'll be very curious, though, if GM did all that because they knew the trans couldn't take any more.
I doubt it, because only one person has ever broken a transmission. That's ETS.
Okay.
And they had 150 passes on that transmission.
Okay. That's confidence inspiring.
Yes, it is.
So that would be my worry, is GM was oh, these break pretty quick. We better put all this stuff in there and slip it real softly.
I don't think so. Now, obviously stubs and axles, right? You have to upgrade or whatever. And then Dodson will end up coming out with gears for them eventually. But you have ETS that's gone 8s over several times, right? And they've gone bottom 9s over and over and over. And then you got Anderson from Fuel Tech. Anderson from Fuel Tech has beat the ever-living crap. You've seen the wheelies and all the stuff.
Kick the whole inner fender well out of it.
Absolutely. And he's never broken a transmission. He's got a spare, and he's taken some parts out of that spare, clutch stuff and stuff like that, but he's never actually exploded a transmission.
Interesting.
Which is, again, it's very confidence-inspiring. Now, when we lock the clutch, right? When we actually can lock the clutch up, yeah, of course. You're going to start having some failures, but Dodson's already spinning up to make gears for those cars. And then you just start upgrading from there.
Yeah, and packaging-wise, they can fit turbo kits
it's so nice.
No other.
So nice.
They have plenty of space back there.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, my car is cammed. I cammed twin turbo with an X-Pipe C8 is a nasty sound. That is a really cool car to drive around.
It makes all the right noises. The Z06 is one of the better looking cars on the market right now, the C8 Z06.
I agree.
Their price point is insane. $230 some of them are going for. You can get a lot of other cars for that price.
For sure. But they're coming back down to where, I think retail on those things is 150, 160, which is still a lot for a Corvette. But
yeah.
But yeah, so yes, that market that has been an uphill battle. Once there's more cracked, even just HP tuners for the ECU was amazing, right? We're oh my gosh, thank you so much, right? And that's getting better. They're doing releases every month, making it so we have access to more stuff.
Well, they took that car from what could have been a dud in the aftermarket world to saving it.
Yeah.
Because even aftermarket ECUs don't do anything for transmissions for the most part.
Correct.
I've seen a lot of aftermarket ECUs try to control transmissions, and they usually can't do it.
Yep.
I know you guys can get away with it on the Motec stuff, right?
Nope, because that's all TCU. That's all.
Oh, still all controlled by the stock computers.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Now you feed the TCU what you want to feed it. On the V10s, you have your translations where you say, "Hey, the car's making this much torque, and this is how I want you to shift." Right. But at the end of the day, the TCU is controlling the transmission, not the ECU.
Yeah, and that's across the board on most platforms. Is if you have one of these newer style transmissions, you probably don't want an aftermarket ECU to control it.
Yeah, well, even look at the what is it, the GT500, the Shelby GT500. Like they can't even do clutch learners. They can't get into the TCU on that car at all, and it's handicapping that platform to a large extent. But once that happens, that car will be it'll be actually as fast as it should be for the horsepower, right? Which it's not right now. That's just the reality. It's a great car still, and you don't not modify your C8. It's a good car. It's fun, but it isn't as fast. If you're like, hey, I want to mod a car because I want it to be fast, don't mod a C8 right now.
Well, like if your buddy just bought an R8 and he twin turboed it, and you bought your C8 and you twin turboed it, and you have kind of similar stuff, you're going to be mildly disappointed.
Dude, if your buddy bought a RS3 and modded it, right? Like, forget an R8. Like, if your buddy bought an RS3 and put an aftermarket turbo on it, like a hybrid turbo from Tile on it, and an exhaust and an intercooler, that guy is destroying your twin turbo C8.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. Now, again, once we get a couple of things
tuned to 911 turbo,
just put
just a tune.
Yes, just absolutely put it dust. That's a little different thing because you're talking about a $200 and something thousand car versus a $100,000 car. Well, I guess not some of the used ones.
I mean, once you put turbos on a C8, though, it's probably up there.
That's true.
You're probably comparable to...
Our initial package, I think, is 30. That's our set, like a 700 horsepower-ish package. I think it's 30,000.
And you get like a C8 for like 60.
Yeah, 67.
Like a pretty nice C8 for that price, which is... That's a good priced car for what it is.
For sure. And like I said, they're going to get fast. Once those things, the transmission gets cracked, the TCU, I should say, they're going to get quick.
I'll be excited to be really proved wrong on, making fun of it in that aspect because it finally came around. I mean, it took freaking 5 years, but
crazy. Right?
Finally, geez.
Crazy. 3 years. It took them 3 years for TCU tuning. Or not TCU, ECU tuning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I can't believe I had that car for 3 years. It was funny because I looked at the registration and I'm like, what? I've had this car for, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Like, they unveiled that car in 19.
I know.
And it finally...
It's just starting.
It's like just starting to roll out. It's almost outdated.
It's got to be one of the slowest. So as a moddable car, it's got to be one of the slowest like platforms to actually get traction. No pun intended. That there is. Like I can't think of another car that's like a staple moddable car that it took 3 years to actually get any type of actual tuning for the car.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Crazy. I mean, even the E-Ray is out now, and that's kind of a whole weird thing in itself. I don't know what HP tuners will be able to touch on that thing.
Well, it's the same ECU. So that's the same. It's the same ECU.
But like, what a part of the E technology will they be able to?
I don't think anything. I don't think it matters because the electric motors just do what the electric motors do. It's just very similar to like if you modify like an NSX, like a new NSX. Like you can put turbos and downpipes and all this stuff on the new NSX, and the front wheel drive thing just does what a front wheel drive thing does. It's not like it has to like keep up.
Yeah.
Right. And so all that is just an assisted all wheel drive system that's just going to do whatever it needs to do.
Okay.
So if you put the power to the actual engine, it's the same motor and the same ECU, you don't have to touch that.
Oh, so that could be really interesting then.
It could be, exactly. And it's interesting because there's a couple guys out there that are like turn turbo in those cars where everybody thinks that they're like doing something. They're not doing anything. It's just ECU tune, turbo kit.
They basically have the same back half car as you. Cut it down the center.
And you don't have to do anything.
Same on the backside.
Yeah, you don't have to
but they just have this like extra 1,000 pounds up in the front or whatever.
Right. And all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I don't know how much it weighs more, but it's probably heavy.
I don't know either. And we haven't had the privilege of doing one. I would like to because I think that it would actually be decently quick. But man, just give me that TCU tuning and then let me go because that's what we really need. Because I want to produce an actual car that I'm really, really tired of putting stuff up and people being like, yeah, but that's slow for that power. I know. It's not my fault.
We all agree.
Yes. Some of us are fighting about that.
Somebody has to be the first through the wall.
Absolutely.
And the first through the wall always gets bloody.
Yes.
But somebody has to do it.
Yes.
And that's like the crutch of the industry.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
It sucks. It sucks to watch somebody have to do it, but somebody has to.
Yeah. And I feel like we need to be more supportive. We need to be more supportive of the people that are doing it, right? Like we do. Like it's like don't hate on the guys that are out there doing it. Like they're trying, right? Like you're not trying, Don't like.
I have no desire to try.
Yeah, exactly.
I love watching people do it though, and I'd
be cheering them on. Woohoo!
Yeah, I can make fun of the car. I'm not going to make fun of the guy trying it.
Right.
I'll make fun of the car in itself because,
Right.
like, I make fun of GM usually because they're like, nobody's tuning this, and that's the saddest way to announce a car.
Yeah,
Is like our unhackable ECU. I'm like, is that
Why?
that's
Like,
on the
why?
brochure?
Yeah,
like
that's
that makes
not
me
cool.
hate you guys. Like,
I know.
Ford's like, sure.
Yeah.
Tune
Yeah.
it up.
So Ford. So like, what are the other up and comers? So you talk about the C8. I mean, oh, yeah, that's great. We're doing some RS3 and TTRS stuff because I like that. I like the new body style, and I like the old body style. Those are cool. You know, the Mustang stuff we haven't really gotten into.
It's so saturated. There's kind of, to me, I would feel like there would be no reason for you guys to also venture into that. It's a very saturated market.
I like more complicated cars. Like I like more complicated. Like you have to get bloody to get through a wall. You know, like there's a good. I'm going to use that, by the way.
Well, there's less competition in that world.
Right. Right.
know?
And I think it sets us apart, and I like that side of things. So yeah, we haven't dabbled into that at all. We're not going to build Vipers because I don't want to go fight Enthmoto and Calvo.
Well, there's so little Vipers anyways. It's like, and nobody wants to build anything but a Gen 5 Viper.
Yeah.
You know? Nobody wants a Gen 4 Viper,
Right.
really.
And there's just not a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just not a lot of them out there.
So let them do that. The 911 Turbo S is obviously one of the best cars ever made.
Yep. For sure.
It's pretty hard for anybody to discount that car. I mean, I was with Garrett one time and he launched it like 40 times in a row.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's what Porsche wants you to do.
Yeah, no, they're amazing. The thing about the 911 is you got to know where to stop because those cars don't love making a lot of power. Like once again, I get this conversation all the time. Should I buy an R8 or a 911 turbo? Well, that depends on what do you want. Do you want 1,000 horsepower or do you want 1,400 horsepower? Or do you want 900 horsepower or 1,400 horsepower? Like our stock motor package on a 911 makes 900 horsepower, and it's a great car.
I was going to say, it's probably such good
It's an amazing
horsepower.
car.
I know you guys had the blue one.
Yeah.
And Rob Ferretti, I think, had he used
sorted
it in a car once. Yeah. And that car, when I saw that, I was like, I think that car, before I even saw anything else, I was like, that's the one that would be the one to choose if you had to do these challenges.
Absolutely.
Like road course, drag race. Like if you had to do these challenges, street drive.
And we won that challenge with Rob. I think that he did sorted, and that was with Amelia, him, Matt Farah.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else, but that was a lot of fun. Garrett took that thing and beat the crap out of it too on a video once. That's a great car, but again, they don't love making power. That car, it loves making like 600, 900, but then you go like 1,100, 1,400, and it's like. It is a very uphill battle. Where the GTR, where the R8 and the V10 is like, okay, put a turbo kit on it, put a fuel system on it, put a Motec in it, and it makes 1,400 wheel, 1,300 wheel, and stock motor, and it does it with ease.
But I said earlier, like every chassis has a stopping point.
Yep, you're right.
But the 911 is such a different driving experience than a big R8. You know, like it's a big car compared to a small Porsche. So the 900 in a little Porsche feels so different than 1,500.
That is, I mean, my R8 when it was stock motor at like 1,400 wheel and the 911 at 900 are my two favorite modified cars I've ever driven in my life. They both do everything so well. But you're right, the Porsche does it completely differently. And it still does it absolutely incredibly. But it's going to run a 990, not a 8.1.
I also feel there's a different owner architect in those two cars. Like the guy that owns the 911 is probably not as mod happy as the guy that owns the R8.
It's truth.
And they probably are rightfully so. They don't need to be modified really quite as much. I mean, it already has turbos on it. It already makes all these great noises. Downpipes, just getting the cats off that thing makes it a great car.
Yeah, well, that's what we did with Garrett's car, right? So when we tuned to get Garrett's car, that car does absolutely incredibly, and it was a catless exhaust and a tune.
Yeah, and the turbo sound that you get from just the catless exhaust is crazy. You're like, this is a factory car?
Yes, it is. It's an amazing platform. It is getting overshadowed. It is an amazing platform. I'd say the guys at AIM up in New Jersey are probably one of the leaders in the United States in doing those cars. We're very good friends with those guys. They're awesome dudes, Joe and Ryan, and we share a lot of intel information. But those cars are a lot of fun. I it's kind of like we were talking earlier about making a car do something that it doesn't want to do. So when you get to like the 1,500 horsepower neighborhood with those cars, they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
They just don't. They don't like it.
Yeah, there's no reason in a lot of ways. Like, you kind of ruin that car a little bit with too much power,
I agree.
I'd feel.
I agree.
It kind of has a sweet spot, you know?
I agree 100%. Like I said, the 900 horsepower, I've had them 11, I've had them 13, and I haven't had a 900 horsepower one. The 900 horsepower one's the one you want.
Yeah.
You know?
And especially if you just want a street car. I mean, if you just want I always make fun of people that get the GT3s and like those, because like they're not a Turbo S, and they're just like, you're buying a race car for the street. You know, it sounds funny to make fun of somebody that buys that, but everybody I ever knew that bought one doesn't own it for very long for that reason.
Well, you got to ream the living crap out of them to get them to do anything, right? They got to be at 9,000 RPM to move.
It's the coolest car to park and look at. But then, like, the driving experience is like a race car on the street.
Yes.
And it's like, just get a turbo.
Just get a turbo and be done with it.
Stop.
Right? It
Come
does
on.
everything way better on the street than a GT3 does, and does 90% of what like your typical track day guy would do on a track day weekend. You know?
Yeah, and most of those people aren't track daying them anyways.
No, they're not.
You're just dealing with a rigid car for no reason at that point.
Yeah. There are a decent amount of guys that DE those cars, but you can DE a 911 turbo just as easy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I think the car's just as capable.
I don't know. It's an interesting deal. So what other new platforms then would you even look at? Because that's got to be the next step for all of these guys that, you know, people in your industry. Could you just build R8s forever? Could you just build V10s forever? I mean, at some point people want the next new thing.
That's a very good question. In the industry as a whole, you know, like, where are we going? What's happening? How, you know, are things getting harder and harder to crack? You know, and what does the future look like?
Everything getting hybrid.
What's the future look like? It's a very, like I said in the beginning, like, there's enough fighting us right now as an industry. I don't think we should be fighting each other. There's no reason for it. Don't waste your breath fighting each other. It's not worth it. There's enough against us, right? It's a very high liability, low profit industry that a whole bunch of legislation and the new cars that are coming out, everything is fighting. Not that I don't like Elon, but anyway. So yeah, the next thing, could we build V10s and GTRs forever? Yeah, I believe we could. I don't necessarily believe we could and continue to scale as a company. Right? Like, most performance shop have like 1, 2, 3 techs, right? I think we have 17 now. 17, maybe 18.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's mouths to feed, right? So like,
Yeah.
I have to be able to either that, or I have to scale that back. So I've looked into that quite a decent amount. I do believe if you do it right, that what we have in front of us right now would sustain us for our lifetime. I really do. I do believe that. I believe that between the RS3 and the TTRS and the R8 and the Huracan and the GTR and the C8, you know, I do believe if you focused and did those platforms correctly and the 911, that it could sustain me for my lifestyle or for my life.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it right. You have to be the head of the industry. You have to be at the top. You have to, you know, you can't be playing around if you want to be sustained, right? But is it the smart thing to jump into the new thing and to get because you probably, I'm sure, are very privy to this, but as things get more complicated, the cost of entry gets much higher, right? Like, how much more time and energy does it take to be proficient in some of these new cars than it did when, you know, in a C5 Corvette, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't super hard to be proficient or to get to the point where you're modifying and consistently modifying a C5 Corvette, however many years ago that was. Now, with cracking ECUs, trying to trick things, you know, all the modern technology that there's and how much they're trying to stop us from doing that, right? Other things that I won't necessarily mention as far as other stuff that's trying to stop us. It's like, do you keep on pushing down that road of the new car, the next new thing, and the next new thing, and the next new thing?
Yeah, and then cars are even getting assembled in a way where they don't want you to take them apart. They just, like, they stuff everything in, they lower the shell onto it, and they put it together with glue, and...
They're making it harder and harder, right? In every aspect, right?
Yeah.
Just like you just said, The tuning side of things, we were just talking about that. 3 years to crack an ECU. I mean, a decade ago, that would have been unfathomable.
Yeah, like the C7 was like DIY friendly.
Right.
You could buy a Pro Charger, you could get a remote tune, you could do it in your garage. The C8 is not what I would think is DIY friendly.
No.
It is drop a whole subframe cradle out, demate the transmission. The belt, they said, is on for life. You don't touch the belt.
Right, because it's against the firewall.
Yeah, when they said that to me, they were like, yeah, it's a non-service item anymore. I was like, how did that happen? It's always been a service item. Like,
Right. Yeah, you can pull the motor out to change the belt.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So like things like that, then you come to this point where it's like, well, if you can't DIY it, then it's even more expensive for a tech to do it, and it's even more work for a tech to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it becomes a weird
if
world.
I'm being honest with you, that is a question I ask myself consistently. Like, okay, because I'm responsible for my guys, right? I'm responsible to put food on people's table. 90% of my staff have families, kids, wives. They've moved to work for me. I feel very responsible to create a livelihood for these people, right? So I think very often I lay my head on the pillow looking at the ceiling going, okay, am I doing this right? Am I working on the right cars? Am I taking on the right projects? Am I employing the right people to help promote? And it is something I think about often. What I'm focused on right now is excellence where we're at, like being a steward of what I'm given right now, like making sure that I'm doing the very best I possibly can with what we have in front of us, the consistency of product, the customer experience, the customer service, being honest, that side of things. I'm focusing on extremely hard because I believe that if I do that, what is next will come, right? If my mindset is always out here, right, then I'm not going to be focused on what's in front of me that I need to make sure is proper and is being done correctly. So while I'm trying very hard to make sure that I'm not missing anything, I'm also making sure that I'm not missing anything that's right here.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be looking to the next best thing unless it's good for the business as a whole and good for all the individuals in the business.
Well, you're kind of vertically integrated instead of like horizontally across all platforms. And I think about like you go into a restaurant, they have a menu that's like got, 17,000 items. You're like, this is probably not good.
Yeah.
They're way too like this is probably not very good. Like I'd rather go somewhere that has like 5 items.
Right.
And you know that those 5 are as good as they can be instead of, we'll work on your pickup truck and I'll also work on your R8.
Yes.
That's a scary thought.
Very much so. And I agree with you. I mean, look at a good example of this is Singer, right? They took nothing but air-cooled Porsches and that's all they do. And they're booked for 5 years and they're $1 million to build or more, right? Well, if it's more than that or less than that, I'm sorry. But like they're around that and you can't get one built for 5 years, but they only build one kind of car, right? But they do it. It is like, wow. Right. And so I look at that and I look at the people that are still working on, Victor posted a picture the other day of the Supras in the shop, right? Like, right. Like, how old is that car? Like, they only made how many of those and when did they make them too? And there's an entire shop operating off of just that. Right. I mean, he messaged me the other day. He said, we're starting to send some more GTR stuff your way because we've got so much super stuff. We want to focus on that. It's like that car was made for what, 4 years? Is that right? I mean,
the 2J, I guess, was made for a little bit longer, but not very long.
Right. And there's a shop that's like completely like that's just their bread and butter. That's all they do. Right. And so I think that if you're excellent at it, that it will sustain. The excellence part of things is the part that I'm focusing on as hard as I can, which ties in with a customer experience and it ties in with my clients being proud of what they're driving and it ties in with my employees being proud of what they're building because the atmosphere in my company is top for me because I want to walk into a place where let's get real, right? Like none of us are making a ton of money, right? So like you got to love what you do and to love what you do, you got to love the people you do it with that are, arm in arm with you.
Well, because you got texts that, hey, Friday, Saturday, you're going to be at the track. Saturday, Sunday, you'll be at the track and Monday you'll be unloading cars and like.
For sure.
That, not everybody wants to do that.
No, and and they have to get along, right? There's a lot of male ego. There's a lot of male stuff. So the aura at my businesses and the vibe at my companies is also a huge deal for me. And that comes with how consistent leadership is and what we're building, and how consistently we're building it. So all that to say, I think about it often. I don't want to miss anything, but I also don't want to not be a steward of what's right in front of me.
Well, even I listened to you talk the other day about defining your own personal success. And I had just had Taylor Ray on, who's a very big YouTuber. And we were talking about I was like, what do you even consider success? Because in YouTube, some people see it as like owning a track or having 50 employees. And he was like, I just want to pay off my house, be able to build the cars I want to build, and, you know, be able to work on what I want to work on and like kind of have my own schedule. And it's so important to define your own end goal in a way.
Absolutely.
Then like, you know, because I know plenty of people that have 20, 50 employees, and I'm like, that's not what I want.
Sure.
That's not my goal of success. Maybe it was at one point in my life, but that seems not ideal. Maybe it will be 10 years from now. Maybe, you know, my idea will change.
Yeah, well, I think it's even harder right now, right? Because we're being fed what success looks like every single day. Like we're, you know, all the things we scroll through, you know, all the TikToks and the Instagrams and the, you know, all of that stuff we're being fed. Like, what does success look like? Yeah. What does beauty look like? What does this look like? What does that look like? And it's shoved down our throats. Like, this is what this is supposed to look like. And then we don't define it for ourselves, right? So that's a whole nother topic, but yes, it's very interesting to kind of say, no, this is what we're after, right? And define that and then go after it and have it as a target and not get caught up in what's the next best thing, because that's what the world's trying to shove down your throat.
Well, also too, there's a big depleting like joy in a lot of these items. In like the next car is really not that much more, like, it doesn't bring you much more happiness than the car that you may currently have.
Yep.
But you may really not be happy with that payment every month. Like,
for sure,
the level of joy that you get starts to deplete a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a sad fulfillment of like prophecy in a way. Like, you try to fulfill your own deal and it just doesn't, it's not happiness.
No, and yes, it's an interesting conversation to break into, because the idea that you have to get something or buy something or get to something that's outside of yourself to create joy or happiness or fulfillment is so rampant in this day and age. I sound so old. But it's not true. Right? Like, you know, it's just not. The reality is that the definition of joy and fulfillment is different for each person. But having more money or more things is never it. You know, it's just never it. The next car, the bigger house, the pool with water in it.
That'll be soon, actually. I know. It definitely doesn't bring me happiness. That pool only ever brought me stress. My whole time I lived here. So
it's crazy because you acquire all these things until you realize, you know, that they're more pressure, more.
Yeah.
You know.
It's not an asset. It's a liability. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh shit, I always thought that this car was going to be so great and so happiness fulfilling, and then it's like, it really doesn't do it.
No. And if you think, but there are so many people out there that are literally lying to themselves, because they actually like are trying to make it be the thing. Oh yeah, this, and the next thing is now going to be the thing, and then the next thing is going to be the thing, and it's not to hate on.
I will say though, it's a good goal. You know, you got the car, and then as long as you realize, and then you maybe get rid of it, because like, you know, the goal to achieve it, and then you realize you have to achieve it to realize that you didn't care about it. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
That it wasn't the happiness that you were actually.
I think that tying life experience to the thing is so much more important than people realize, right? Like, I've got an R8, right? It's cool. It's fast. It's bright. It's whatever. Like, great. But like, what experiences does it give me, right? Okay, driving, yes, absolutely. How about friendships? You know, does it make it so I can go and sit at a car show or at a racetrack or, you know, compete with friends or whatever it may be? How important is the experience that's surrounded around that thing? I spoke about boating earlier. I love boats. I love boating. I love the experience that boating brings. You get to see things from a different perspective. You get to interact with nature. You get to hang out with people that are like-minded. Like, it's not the thing. It's not the boat, right? It's the experience that surrounds that. And I think that the cars, if we got a little bit more, dug in a little bit more to that, or not even just the cars, but anything in life, right? Like, what is the pool? Right? Does it mean family comes over? Right? Does it mean you get to spend more time with your kids? Does it mean it's going to get to time with your parents? You know, what does it create? What type of experience does it create?
Well, that's, you know, you kind of made me realize, like, my Camaro, like, I don't, you know, I'm not like, oh, I need to put, you know, 50 grand into it for a better trans. And like, I'm not constantly doing that because the joy I get from it is hanging out with my friends at the track and making passes. It's not, I don't need to be the fastest person that anybody's ever met. I don't need to be the fastest guy on YouTube. It doesn't make me any happier than being at the track and, you know, sweating my ass off and pulling the spark plugs because I thought something was, like, that's like the fun of it. That's like the joy is being there, and making it more difficult on myself at the track's not going to make it funner.
Right. Well, and then okay, so yes, and I agree with you 100%, but how many people are not letting themselves realize that that's actually the case? How many people are chasing the time or the thing or the bigger transmission or the bigger turbos or this, and they're not slowing down and going, let me experience this, right? Let me enjoy this. Let me enjoy my friendships. Let me, you know, just like we were talking about earlier about the experiences of like when DCT World Cup or GTR World Cup was going on, like that was an experience. Like that was, you hang out with awesome people. There's the racing was, you're there to race, I guess, but what are you there for? You're there for the experience, the friendships, the camaraderie, the conversations, you know, seeing the cool cars, right? Like, and then you're fulfilled.
That's why everybody stayed at the same hotel. They had a banquet night, like for the people.
Absolutely.
It's less about the car, and I've started to learn that more and more about my own personal car, and it's more about me and my family getting to go to the racetrack and being around racers is always the best thing ever. I tell everyone that. I'm like, the racing community is the best group of people you will find anywhere. Maybe boating, but
they're similar. Very, very similar. Yeah.
And boats, similar deal. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, so I grew up around boats. My brother's a 100-ton captain's captain license. You know, like I've grown up around boats my whole life, and that's probably why I avoid them, because I know boats. It's a bad thing to go down.
Yeah, it is. Break out another 1,000, I guess, is an understatement. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and you know, that's an interesting conversation. I really like it because I think that the industry, the world, but our industry needs more of like, slow down, enjoy what's in front of you. Yeah. Be a steward of what's in front of you. Enjoy what's in front of you. Don't just always be looking at the next thing like, hey, what's your goal here? Well, my goal is to hang out with my friends, spend time with my family, enjoy like-minded people, and enjoy driving a car that feels pretty cool to go down the track. Well, guess what then? You don't need the bigger transmission, you don't need the bigger turbo, you don't need this. Oh, man, I'm really hurting my business here.
No, but like this might get more people instead of the same people just trying to keep leveling up.
You are so right.
Get more people involved, like 50 people racing instead of like 8 people that are fighting for this number one spot, because there's only one guy up there anyways, and he's really probably not any happier than you.
Yeah, I would rather have 50 people racing or 50 people enjoying an experience than 5 people racing, right? Like that's what this is about. Yep. None of us are Lewis Hamilton. We're not Max Verstappen. We're not making $150 million contracts here because we're the most amazing racers in the world, right? Like, okay, that's a different situation. This is not that. We are just going to the racetrack or to a parking lot somewhere to hang out with our buddies and enjoy an experience. And yet we get clouded. And like you said, I think that if there was more focus on the experience, there would be more people to appreciate that. Rather than, hey, I'm going to talk crap about the guy next to me because I want this $1,500 in this plastic trophy.
Oh, I know. It's taken me a long time to realize that, you know, and like kind of come to that realization that, you know, the more money you dump into a car does not give back the same amount as like the initial getting the car to the track. Mm-hmm. And I tell people this, that, you know, have had their car on jack stands and are like building the baddest thing they've ever built, like the baddest car ever. And it's like, yeah, but it's been on jack stands for 5 years. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be the baddest thing ever if it's going to take, you know, a friggin' tenth of your lifetime here.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Unless that's the experience for the person. Because I've got a couple of buddies
if they just want to build, yeah.
that they love the build. You know, they love the build. And there's guys like that, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely that person. I know people, I mean, that build cars and then just park them.
Yeah.
Like, there's YouTubers like that all the time. There's so many that just build the cars and don't use them. Just park them.
No, I mean, 100%. And then, so there definitely is those guys that's like, this is the experience for me. The building is the experience. I'm not, I like enjoying the thing that I've built, right? So, but some guys are like, once they're done, they're like, okay, now what? I don't know what to do. I don't know, they want to build it.
See, like, for me, it's just a car in the lane next to me. That's the only real, like, exciting, like, what I want out of the car is to be able to pull into the beams with a car next to me and race him.
Yeah.
That's like it. That's it. My car is a tool to just do that.
Yes.
Like, if it wins or loses, that was still what it was
and then shake his hand afterwards.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Look him in the eye, shake his hand afterwards, no matter what. Like that's the thing. Not to dig down. I don't want to go down this road, but like that's the thing that's such a bummer about most of the roll racing stuff, like the sanctioned roll racing stuff that we've got going on right now. You know, there's just not enough good racing and good camaraderie in that sport. Like it's like everybody's out there thinking that they're, like I said, they're Lewis Hamilton and they're going to win $150 million or something. You know.
Someone's in the stands gonna pick you up, like
right, exactly. Like there's no scouts, I promise. Yeah. right. Where if you could just get down to like really good racing, you know, and then the shake the hand afterwards, that's some of the funnest. That's so fun, you know.
A rerun on a roll racing's a real kick in the nuts.
Oh,
there was like 3 in one deal on TX2K where I was just like, oh, a freaking rerun? Are you kidding me? Like that just like that takes like all this like buildup of racing and just like deflates it.
Yeah. Well,
when that's a potential.
The second rerun is the really deflating thing. The one rerun that somebody messed up, they missed a gear, they didn't do this, they didn't really know how to pace, that's one thing. But like they come back around, they get a little talking to and they do the same exact thing again. That's when you're like, dude, you're not here to come on. It's not it's not constructive for the industry.
Or cars are like nowhere near each other on the track and like one goes like the one that's way behind goes like 240 and the other one goes like 220 and it's like, well, how are you 10 cars ahead of him? Like this doesn't make any sense. I've said it before, I've never like finished a roll race and been like confident that I won it. I've always been like, was it good? Did I start right? Like, did I win? Like it's always been like an air of mystery of like at the end of the track. It's like, did I win that? Was it good? Was it clean? Like it's always confusing. I'm like, I know I was in front of him, but like, I don't know. Like, does it go on mile an hour? Like, did he get more mile an hour anyways? Like it's
it's not weird. You're right. I mean, and a lot of people say it, you know, real racing, let's switch over to real racing and, you know, all from a dig and it is. But I'd still believe that there is a way to get to the point where you are competitively roll racing and doing that respectfully and having a really good time. You know, but whatever.
So to end on, like, where do you think the limit is on the V10 platform? Because it doesn't seem like we've really, like, not we, but the industry has really hit the limit where there's like a wall. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there is a wall somewhere, mm-hmm. but it doesn't seem like there's really gotten to it yet. I mean, I think, 2,500, 3,000 horsepower on those V10s? Mm-hmm. It's got to be a point where nothing will hold up to that.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess there would be two different things. The where should we stop and where are we gonna stop?
Yes.
Right.
But like there's always gonna be like a shop car that's like, not every customer is gonna have this, but like we're gonna push the envelope as much as possible. Yes,
right. But are things getting even too fast for that? Like 250, 260 and a half? That's nuts.
Well, yes, half mile really shouldn't exist.
Right, but even that, like, okay, like how many of these, and I don't want to go down this road too far, but like how many of these cars like shouldn't be going 750s, 760s? Mm-hmm. I mean, heck, I'm guilty of it. My car's got a bolt-in roll bar, and I go 750s.
There's only one Huracan that I know of that...
Jordan's.
Yes. Should be going as fast as it goes.
100%.
And that's Jordan. And the car's very impressive. It's an awesome car.
And no offense, Jordan, if you're watching this, but it's the Fox body of Performantes. Yes. It's a race car. right? It's still heavy, but it's a race car. That's a race car.
Yeah, you look inside of it and you're like, oh,
That's a race car.
okay.
Race car, and rear-wheel drive. Converted to rear-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive anymore, race car. And again, amazing feat. Once again, guy,
I really like looking at that car and
dude,
like,
I love
yeah,
Jordan. I love
watching
the
it
guys
race.
from AMS. I think the feat is awesome, but I don't believe the spirit of the car really. I mean, it's a race car. Okay, to answer your question, that's an interesting question. A lot more people right now are getting their hands on stuff that allows us to push the limits, right? We have billet blocks coming out now that everybody can get their hands on.
billet wet block V10 is a crazy thing to think about.
Absolutely.
Dry deck, right? Yeah.
That's going to be, and then now Dodson stuff is getting to be like very reliable, reliable.
And that's a Proline block, right?
No, Noonan makes that block.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know what Proline builds only for UGR, and I don't know the block that UGR uses because they keep everything super tight-lipped.
Okay.
In the industry right now, like me, I've done 5 of them. Tony, I think, has done 3. Hefner did 1 and then decided he didn't want to run it.
The Noonans.
Yep. And so that's what's out right now is mostly Noonan stuff. And again, I think UGR has their own that whoever builds for them.
Yeah. Okay.
So that the consistency of the transmission and the ability to go to a billet block, and then of course you can put whatever turbos on the back of the thing you want. Like you could put you could put anything back there. There's so much room.
yeah.
So what is the limit? I don't know the answer to that question. I can say that making 2,500 horsepower isn't super hard. I mean, I just shouldn't say that. That's not true. For a shop that has cut their teeth on 2,500 horsepower 6-cylinders, like T1 has, like we have, like AMS has.
Yeah, on a 4-liter.
Right, exactly. Or 3.8 or a 4-liter. The V10 stuff is a breath of fresh air because it definitely does work more simply, easier, I guess. But where the limit is, I don't know. I don't know if I want to find it. I don't know. I don't know if any of us should. Honestly, I think we should all just build 1,500 to 2,000 horsepower V10s and let customers enjoy the living crap out of it and be done. Because that's really where that car should live. It's an amazing car, right? What kind of car can you drive at the drag strip, run a 770 that makes 2,000 horsepower, makes all the right sounds, and pick up your wife and go to dinner in? Like, that's what that's wonderful. That's where that car should live. 3,000 horsepower, what do you do for safety? How crazy is it? Like,
That's always been my worry. I mean, I've seen Tony Palo's car, for instance. His wife drives it, and it's just a car with a lot of power. It looks like,
Yeah, which is why he built the race car.
Maybe it has a bolt-in roll cage, but a bolt-in roll cage it's a bolt-in roll cage.
And that's 100% why, because he said this is too much now. So that's why he built that. He bought that GT, which you saw at Texas probably if you were in Texas, that silver GT.
I wasn't there this year.
Okay, so he bought a Le Mans, literally a full-on Audi race car, fully caged the whole 9 yards, and turned it into a ridiculous twin-turbo deal.
That's kind of funny because would that pass any tech at a drag strip? It's not a drag cage.
Yeah, but he doesn't go do NHR.
I know, it's just funny that because they're not the same. One's meant to be hitting the door.
Right.
But drag cars don't really get hit in the door.
Right.
You don't have you don't need intrusion bars.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what certifications actually crossed, because I think that would be an actual road race, like an FIA, I guess, for certification or some kind of cert
would it qualify as 25.2, 25.3 drag racing? I'd be curious how that
that would be interesting. Would it be interesting? I'd love to take my my Lotus little cup car and be okay, and take it to a cage cert guy and be what can you cert this for?
How fast can it go? What bars need to be added to because that would be the real question is what foot bars, what bars would need to be included.
Yeah, or they may say, holy crap, this thing's got way more than it needs. Because if you took a Porsche Cup car and look at the cage in that thing, it's holy crap. It's gnarly.
It's the gussets and stuff that they put on there is next level.
Wild.
And there's so much stiffer, I'm sure, that chassis. It probably helps him so much on consistency.
He hasn't run the car yet, but I can imagine it's going to be. I'm kind of jealous because like I said, he bought that car. It's like a Le Mans. You could go Google it. It's a Le Mans R8, a full-on road race R8.
I remember seeing the photo shoot when they first did it, and it's cool. It's one of those cars where you catch yourself for 15 minutes looking at photos of it because you're just oh, well, that's cool.
Absolutely.
Oh, how'd they do that? Oh, wow, look at the gussets there. And You know, it's one of those cars, and a couple things that have come out of T1 are similar to that. A few GTRs, you know, George's car.
They do a good job.
Yeah.
They do a good job.
The wing on that, I remember when I first saw that, and the guy hung on the wing, and it started to go down. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they do a good job. Yeah, I mean, and really, I mean, a 3,000 horsepower car, that's what the safety should look like on it, right? So, and again, I'm completely guilty of this, and so are some of my clients. So I can't sit here. I'm not pointing fingers. It's just yeah, it's an interesting subject matter as far as safety is concerned.
Yeah, safety is definitely tough, but then the limit, there's a wall somewhere. Like somewhere, somebody's gonna hit the point, and then you'll have to get past it, and then suddenly. That's how cars kind of work. I mean, it's just like there's somebody that's going to get through that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's happened with the GTR, right? I mean, we're speaking of T1, I mean, Billy's car that won Texas last year, I mean, that car is super fast, whatever it makes, 3,300, 3,100, 30, whatever. And I think that's about where those cars are just like, hey, you couldn't do anything much more than that.
Yeah.
The V10.
Well, like Giddy. I mean, Giddy, like, was just dollars and, like, keep getting me past this point with more dollar bills.
Yeah, the one was Giddy when he was with AMS. Because when he left to AMS, then JR from ETS actually bought that car. It wasn't Giddy's anymore. Giddy was just the driver for the car. And then ETS is the one that like put the money behind that and actually pushed it. But when Giddy was with AMS, he was just a client. How much they shared expenses, I don't know, for marketing or whatever.
I'd imagine some overlap there. I mean, when it was the Alpha G, it went sixes at TX2K. And when it was white, right before it kind of left AMS, it was like kind of done at AMS.
Yep, 100%. That was when he had all the rose gold on it. That was pretty.
Yeah, it was a good-looking car at that point.
It really was.
They did a good job on that.
But yeah, I don't know how much they shared expenses, and I don't know where the edge of the V10 is. And like I said, I don't know. I don't know that creates a super wonderful customer experience, which is what I'm so focused on right now. It's like, hey, listen, do you want to have the fastest? I mean, there's those customers. That's what they want, right? And they've got more money than, they've got enough money to create that experience for themselves. But we've never really been that shop where it's just like, hey, you want to be the fastest in the world, you come to us. Do I think we have the capabilities? Yeah, but that's a lot of effort and a lot of ups and downs and valleys and mountaintops for one car and one client, you know?
Yeah. Well, I know like Ned with the Orange Viper, he kind of outgrew the racing capability of Vengeance Racing.
Vengeance, yeah.
Nothing against those guys at Vengeance, but his racing program outgrows what a shop does for somebody who wants to race every weekend. And then he built a freaking Pro Mod.
Right.
But then, like, you know, he raced so much and that car so frequently that it just outgrew shop support in a way. And a 3,000 horsepower car will do that.
Yeah, and I think that him and Ron probably came to an understanding, right? Like, because they're good friends. They're still good friends, and Ron runs a good business, and they probably just said, hey, listen, he probably just said, this isn't our bread and butter. It's not bringing in anything. It's not making us any money, right? And we're putting in tons of effort to it. And it's not advancing what they wanted the business to do.
It's like, we want to help you. We would love to help you, but it's just not, it's not possible anymore.
It's got to make business. For the business guys, it's got to make business sense, right? Ron's a business guy. He's growing a good business. So, it's got to make business sense.
Ned's a financial advisor. I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then raises a Viper on the side.
I don't know how that works. So, like, do the dumbest financial thing you can possibly do.
Build 2 Vipers to drag race.
Yeah.
Start with a very rare color on one.
One of the most fun guys to race ever, though.
Yeah.
What an awesome guy.
For sure.
So much fun to race. So fair. So enjoyable to be in the pits with. Just an awesome. You want to talk about a salt of the earth car guy? Man, that's a salt of the earth.
My last pass at Atlanta was my car with Ned next to me, and it was pretty cool. It was like there's a photo of us together. My car did a wheelie, his car spun. I was way out on him, and then 220 mile an hour Viper comes by me and at the stripe basically, and I see both parachutes balloon. I was just like. It's like, when a car comes around you with that kind of mile an hour, I was going like 180. He went like 215 or something, and it was just like, whoa.
Yeah, I did that to Brooke in Texas this year. She was like, I don't remember what she ran, like a 170 something or maybe low 180s, and I did 200, 201, and I came by her at the 1,000 like she was. It was.
Oh, you feel it.
It was pretty funny. I was like, I'm sorry, like, you totally treated me. You got to the 60, you got to the 330 before me. You should have won, but. Whoa!
Yep. But I got horsepower, so
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It went right by her. But she came over to me afterwards. She shook my hand. And she said, that car is fast. I said, well, you did everything you were supposed to do at the beginning. I technically lost, but the car did what it was supposed to do.
And like your car, for a 750 car to go 490s in the eighth is not like, if you saw that eighth mile, you'd be like, oh, it'll probably go like a 780 or a 790. But then it has so much back end.
It does.
But it also just, maybe because it has so, like the 60-foot 330s are so hard in that car, but it has so much back end.
Yeah, it comes on really hard.
And I think that's just the nature in those cars.
It is. My car is a little bit of an anomaly just because most guys that are running that mile an hour are running like 42R size turbos, and I'm running like a 35R size turbo. It's a 70 millimeter by Zona, Greg, that you had on. He's a good friend, and he designed the turbos for us. And that's one of the reasons that car kind of like roll racing and other things, like it really does well. Street stuff, it's crazy. It's crazy fast. But the mile an hour in that thing, we can really we can do whatever we really want on the short track, and it won't fall out of boost, which is nice. Because if I want to short shift the car to try to get into the next gear and get it to roll, it works really, really well.
Yeah.
With a little bit smaller turbos, that car is special. It does. It's very special. When we went to that slips thing with Garrett, I mean, they'd done all-wheel drive burnouts with freaking Raptors across that starting line before I ran that PB, and I go out there and I'm like, I don't know if this thing's gonna 60 foot. I called Taylor. He's not in town. I said, hey, listen, just give me a launch map that will just like go, right? Because this track, like, I probably could have walked across the track with flip-flops on. Yeah. They weren't prepping it, right? It was just like...
Yeah, it was just like a fun deal.
It was just fun, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm like, I just want to run the car down, get some data, whatever. I went 131 to the 60, I went a 52. And that's just, I mean, it just works. The car just works. It's really a neat.
It's like that dirt road tune-up on there.
Yeah, exactly. Make it launch on ice.
Are you signed up are you going to go to Garrett's back the track deal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about it while I was there
Nice.
the other day. Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty sure Hefner wants in on that too.
Yeah, I hope so. I want them all. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a cool event. Will be a cool event.
They've only really had trucks for the most part. So
That's what he told me.
A couple Hondas here and there, but like to actually get something of high caliber 7-second car, I don't think they've had yet. Maybe, but I don't think so.
It'd be fun, and I think he could make it as big or small as he wanted to, right? So I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm sure if he really wanted to, it'd be a 52 car field or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like because
Right.
there's a good amount of all-wheel drive cars that.
So does he do the actual, like, he does it backwards?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's gonna.
You start at the second turnoff, or everybody stands at the second turnoff, but then you go down to the track and you start right where the prep ends, like right at the boards. Maybe they'll do it the other way so that you have more shutdown,
Yeah.
because starting at the boards gives you not as
Is
much
it
shutdown.
quarter or eighth?
Eighth.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll do it towards the starting line, which would be nice. But every time I've done it, they're prepping, so they're doing it the other way. But yeah, it'll be cool. That'll be fun for your car, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about it.
I'm glad that our cars have both ran together. There's a photo somewhere of them together on the track, which is cool that that's happened.
That wasn't Charlotte.
No, it was Darlington.
Darlington. That's right. That's right. Are you going to Charlotte?
I don't know, man. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's a hot weekend.
It is.
Anytime I've been there, I love Streetcar Takeover. I love those guys.
Me too.
But
Yeah,
it's a
Justin and
hot
Chase are
weekend
awesome.
there.
Even though Justin just had a car built by 316, I still love him.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know if we were touching.
No. There's no hate at all. That's awesome. We love those guys. I mean, they put on awesome events. They always cater to us, and they're both just awesome. They're just car guys.
Yeah.
They're just awesome dudes. They really are.
But that weekend is hot, and their curfew usually gets hit.
Yeah.
And I usually avoid it. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't.
It's from Atlanta. It's close enough to us to where it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. for the customers up north that you guys probably have up that way.
Well, Sandwiches Virginia, our Virginia store and our Atlanta
yeah.
store. So like, yeah, I get everybody that comes down from the north shop, and then everybody comes down from Atlanta. So it works really well.
That's perfect. Well, good deal, man. Thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah, this is a real blessing.
Love to have you back at some point, but
Yeah.
we'll end it off there. Where can people usually find you? Cicio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out some stuff.
I'll tell you what we should do next time is me and Jason. You and me and Jason. That would be a good conversation.
That that might go for 8 hours.
You get Jason talking.
I got 4 chairs. I mean, we can.
That's right. We Oh yeah, Cicio Performance. Whatever the YouTube channel. We're trying to grow YouTube a little bit. We're not doing a great job at it, but we're trying.
Tell Parker to freaking film some stuff.
Yep. Instagram, Cicio Performance. Me, Nathan.Cicio is my Instagram. And then we're just that's most of our outlets.
Follow along. Check out some of the cars. They'll be at plenty of events. But good deal, guys. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.